now, or should we give that another day, another time?
Now we're broadcasting now. Did you want to talk about that before we started broadcasting?
Too late.
All right. No, of course not.
So I'm only getting you guys like half, 50% of the time. I don't hear what you're saying.
Oh, that's going to be.
Which is not going to make a good show at all.
No, it's really not.
No.
Well, we'll see what happens. We can do the intro, and if it really sucks, then plan
Have
B.
you got a high-speed option in your hotel?
He's on it.
You're on it. Uh-oh.
A high-speed what? I'm sorry. You said if you have a high-speed
option. Have you paid the extra $10 or something?
Yes,
for your high speed?
I paid the $10 for 6.5 down and 6.5 up, which is what it tests at. But this is the location that it does it, and then it just completely disappears for like 1 or 2 seconds, and then it comes back.
Oh no,
that's not good.
Because it's not built for continuous broadcasting. It's built for like, oh, you wanted to download like a document faster.
Yeah.
Okay, you can do that with it.
So I'm gonna switch over to the phone and hope that I can make it through the month with the bandwidth that I have, the data that I have. Okay. Hopefully, won't. Yeah. Hang on. Excuse me.
Damn.
Hello.
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 Hello. You're still a bit Arabishy, I'm afraid.
Hello, testing. Give it a chance to kind of sort itself out.
Okay.
Am I coming in any better?
It's worse.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Not really.
I think, you know what? We may not have, I don't think we're going to be able to do the show.
Oh. Well.
What are they saying on the in the chat room?
It wouldn't be APG without some technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the last comment.
So. And considering the other 50%, you can't understand what they're saying. You know, it'd be great if the 50% accuracy rating, if you could hear me 50% of the time when I'm saying something that's actually right, score. But I don't know if we can sync it up like that.
I just like to try and say things that are 50% correct. Yeah. So it's the same accuracy rating, right? Whether you're
or things that could go either way.
Could go either way. Leave it a little ambiguous.
Let's stay away from facts.
Yeah. Why bother with facts?
Just opinion. And so it could be right, could be wrong. It's my opinion, your opinion. Who cares?
Well, you're coming through better now. You're giving just opinions, Jeff.
Okay. Well, then that's the key. I'll just start giving opinions.
I mean, I can hear you better now. You're just a little fuzzy.
Well, I am a little
Jeff's
fuzzy.
always a bit fuzzy.
I thought it was just in my own head that everything was fuzzy, but apparently not. Okay, let me see if I can adjust my bandwidth and make it...
But sound-wise, it's better.
Okay.
Got it cut out.
Okay, so I bumped my video bandwidth down, so it's like really cruddy looking. But you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Uh-huh. Dr. Dan can't hear anyone. I think that's on your end, Dr. Dan. Everyone else is good, I think.
Yeah. Turn the volume up. Let's see. What is James is bummed that he missed Dana. Oh, in Columbus, I guess. Yeah, because Dana hasn't been here yet. We're still waiting for him. So I know that I'm all fuzzy, but everybody sounds fine here. Thank you, Liz.
And hello, Tony. And hello, Jordan. And hi there, Liz. All right, let's
so
do
what
it.
am I supposed to go for, Tony? Yes, go for it.
The show, I think.
The show.
Okay.
Yeah, just today,
Oh,
this afternoon, what we planned on doing in general.
you look no cruddier than usual, Jeff. Oh, you meant the video. Oh, that's very sweet of you, Micah. Let me scratch something off the list here.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. We didn't do any.
Hanukkah.
I
gifts
didn't record anything with Micah, so I can't scratch it off the list.
Well, just scratch them off your
I don't have
Christmas
it.
card list.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Off my Christmas card list. I don't do Christmas cards.
Well, he needs a Hanukkah card anyway, so.
Oh, that's true. All right. Well, Dana said he was going to join us whenever he could. He's going to try. He said he would try to be here by 1:30.
It's 1:48.
I need to fire up my amphetamine thing. What's it called? Audio hijack.
What?
I think he's doing method.
We are.
It looks
we
like
are
a lot
live.
Just like he picked the wrong week to quit.
Just want
method.
just want to remind you that we are live.
Well, no, actually, I've got two things. One is called amphetamine, and it's a little program which stops my computer from sleeping.
That's what I use.
And the other one is that audio hijack. And that looks like a bottle of pills as well. So wherever I can find it, it doesn't seem to bloody disappear. Where's it gone?
So I use amphetamine as well. The little app that keeps your machine from sleeping.
Yeah.
You can just go into settings and tell your machine not to sleep.
Yeah, but it's easier to do it this way.
I don't think so, but whatever.
Yeah, I just
For
like
some
the whole
reason-
thing in the
Seems
over-
like extra stuff to have on your. Never mind.
Yeah,
You guys are the tech gurus.
I've been using it forever, and it works great. Actually, the one I used to use is called caffeine, but apparently on one of the system updates, it didn't work.
Caffeine got upgraded. It's a gateway drug, you
Did
know.
it? Oh,
No. I mean, it just.
oh, to amphetamine. Yeah.
Well, where the hell has audio hijack gone? Bloody hell. How
Search
can it
for
just
it.
go?
Search for it.
Yeah, just do a command space bar and put in audio, and then
Command
find it.
spacebar.
Yeah.
Ooh, spotlight
the-
search.
Yeah, that's the way I do most everything.
Or there's a little search icon up in
Audio
the right-hand
hijack.
corner.
John Rogue Amoeba's low traffic email list. What the hell is that?
Rogue Amoeba makes.
That's
Yes.
audio hijack.
Yeah, Rogue Amiga is the Amoeba is the company that makes it.
All right. Sessions. Come on, sessions. All right, just click new sessions.
Flight 209, you are cleared for takeoff. Roger.
Why did I have to create a new session? I don't want to create. I want to use an
No,
old session.
go to no, don't do go to just do a command. What is it? Command 1 stuff that gives you the window of the sessions.
I have no idea. I don't really use commands. I like
Okay.
the
Um,
toolbar.
you don't need to create a new session. It should already be there saved. At
And you just
um,
go to where it says input device, and then there's a little record button at the bottom on the left.
no, but he's looking
Oh.
for the one he
Oh.
already set up.
Okay. Then you need. I don't know. I've closed that window
No,
apparently.
I seem to have lost all my old sessions. I mean, the one I had set up is gone. I've just got new blank session under sessions.
Oh,
That's weird.
why did you delete it?
I didn't. The only time I ever use it is when I'm talking to you. It must be something you did.
Oh, yeah, I did it.
Jeff snuck
I
into
have
your
remote
computer.
access to your computer.
Well, you're always messing about with my computer. I don't know how you do it. Right,
I don't
input
either.
device. Input device H5, advanced. That's okay. Left channel, right channel. That'll do when it's on. And then I want recorder. Do I want a recorder?
Yes, you do, because that's what you're
Yeah.
gonna. Yeah, you need to
And I'm
record that.
going to record in 3. High quality AAC, yes.
Yes. Hang on. Let me get mine.
Advanced
So,
recording options. Bit rate. 192 probably.
you do. Okay, hang on. Advanced recording options. Bitrate 128 channels mono, and then container M4A, and it says in parentheses more compatible.
M4A more compatible. I suppose well, none of us like being safe. Right. H5 128 kps mono. KBPS bomber. Okay.
Okay. And then
I'm ready to go.
And does it look like it's do you have like one of those audio meters there so you can make sure that it's coming through?
Well, I can do a bit of recording and see if yes, when I'm
Okay.
recording, it's coming through.
Okay. Very good. And then listen to the recording just to make sure.
Okay. How the hell do I listen to what I've just recorded?
Go command
Recordings. I've got it. No, I found
command
it 3
2.
seconds.
Okay.
No, I'm a mouse man.
Okay.
Right, play. Oh, yes, that worked.
Excellent.
Right. Can I delete that now?
Yeah. Don't delete the session.
Recordings. It's got to be delete recording. There we go. Right. Move to trash. Thank you. Right, I'm ready to clap, old chap.
Okay. And then I guess when Dana comes in, I'll just have to figure out exactly. I hope he'll remember to start recording as well. Here, let me send him a little message here. Don't forget to record via audio hijack. We're about to start.
Now, it's interesting. I've deleted that recording, but down there next to the record button where it says stopped, it's still got 3 seconds.
That's okay. When you hit it again, it'll disappear and start off on 0.
All right. Right.
I don't know.
Well, I'm ready when you are, sir.
Okay.
By the way, your audio sounds much better now.
Thank you very much. Good. Okay. Let's do our clap thing. Hang on. Wait a minute. I need to make sure I'm recording too. Record. Okay. Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, clap. Okay. 1, 2, 3, clap. That is so funny.
That sounded brilliant.
It's like clap. It's like almost 1 second apart.
Who was first?
Well, I heard myself first.
Well, I mean, after you.
I don't know. I can't tell.
Dana says he's 10 to 15 minutes out.
Okay. How are you going to give Dana the clap if he starts after all you do? Well,
the magic of podcasting, Micah. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Some things are better left unexplained.
Try to fit him in somehow. That's what she said.
That's what she said.
All right. All right. Let me see. Let me go to my Google Doc with the show notes. I can't find it. Here it is. And yeah, I think I'm ready. So with that, let's do it.
Okay.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 296.
Flight 209, you are clear for takeoff. Roger. 123.9.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 827 in the Sheraton Recording Studios in Springfield, Massachusetts. In today's episode, a glider hits a drone in the Netherlands. A 757 gets its nose all out of shape. And who needs a stinking runway? That and more, news, your feedback, and the latest episode installment of Plain Tales. Get all settled in, sit back and relax. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Flight 296 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, an aviation podcast. where we, funny enough, talk about aviation. And joining me today from the Carolinas, we have a doctor, a marathon runner, skydiver, and a commercial multi-engine instrument rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Well, hello. Yeah, very excited to talk about some aviation today. Speaking of aviation, I need to go flying because it's been a while since I've actually done any flying. I just have been letting the airlines fly me around all over the place. And if I don't get up there soon, I'm going to run out of my currency, but I'm not there yet. So I'm going to get back out there really soon. But for the moment, I'll settle for talking about aviation.
Good. Get out there, Steph. Please.
I know.
Okay. Don't let other people do it for you.
No.
Also joining us from across the pond, an Airbus captain, flies the A330 and A340 series. He is outside the London area. He's a former RAF and RAAF fighter pilot, Nick Anderson. Captain
Well,
Nick.
hi there, Jeff. Hi. Little bit wrong on location today. I've actually made it across the pond, and I'm just outside Manhattan in Union.
Oh, that's right.
Long Island.
Thanks, I've forgotten already that you're actually over here in the States.
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm 5 hours behind the United Kingdom, so I'm feeling a bit slow today.
Ah, they've already made this switch over to the.
Well, actually, now that's
new
true.
time.
No, it's 4 hours.
I should have mentioned. I should have corrected myself. That's 4 hours behind the UK. When you guys switch next weekend or this coming weekend, it'll be back to 5. It just confuses me this week because we don't do it on the same day. It's silly, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing's silly. I don't know why we have to do the stupid changing of the time every 6 months anyway.
Doesn't make any sense anymore.
Well, in
No,
the
it
UK,
doesn't.
we used to do it for the farmers so that they had an extra hour of daylight to milk the cows or something stupid.
That's what they say here too, and
And
I don't
I don't buy it.
don't think it's really applicable anymore. But you know, what do I know?
No, I don't think so.
Don't answer.
But I mean, it costs us a lot more in heating and lighting because those few extra hours of afternoon sunlight that we would have had. You know, having to put the heating on earlier and you put the lighting on earlier, which just means we consume more electricity, pay more bills. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think they've done studies and they have some stats on how changing the time really affects things like traffic accidents and people's health and everything else. It's just not a good thing. I
Yeah.
think they should just.
I'd just rather have daylight at the end of the day. You know, I'd rather it be light out when I leave work, but that's just because I work a regular 8 to 5 job most days.
So let me get this straight. You want daylight at night?
Not at night, but just I don't want it to get
Oh,
dark
okay.
at 5:30. I'd rather
It
it get
makes
dark.
night flying a lot easier.
It'd be dark during the day. No,
Yeah,
wait a minute.
helps
That
for
doesn't
night
make any
currency when you
sense
have to
at
go
all.
out and fly in the dark. No. I just would like it to stay lighter later. I don't care about the daylight
I see.
in the early morning. So
I see.
Thanks.
Gotcha.
Anyway, we're all Zulu now, so aren't we? So listen,
You
no,
are.
I am. I'm
You are.
Zulu. You're never going to be Zulu.
No.
They
not
won't. They
ever.
won't let
Greenwich
us.
Mean Time,
We've
all
petitioned.
Zulu.
I'm sure
Yeah.
we've petitioned because we want to be the center of all things.
Yeah, the
So.
center of attention, including time. Also, Dana is not right with us now, but he is going to be joining us at some point here soon. I believe he's just getting back from a trip today, but we'll hear from him when he joins in. And let's see. So let's just quickly kind of get all caught up with what's been happening with each of us. Captain Nick, you said you're in New York City or Long Island, and why are you there?
It's just the first trip of the month. It was a reasonably late flight in to JFK. Got 2 nights here, which is a little unusual, but I was on call yesterday in case one of the bin liners goes US and they replace it with an Airbus. They need an Airbus crew out here. But there were obviously lots of going on with disruptions yesterday because my first officer got whipped away from me and sent home yesterday on a different flight. I got a first officer who flew into Miami and then had to position up to JFK, and he's going to become my AFO today and when I fly it later on. And generally speaking, it's all been a bit of a cock up because I was supposed to be in a hotel in Manhattan, which has been lovely for me. And despite me knowing that and trying to tell HOTAC and crewing over and over and over again, they insisted I come to the Long Island Marriott, which is not my favorite hotel. And then I've discovered that my entire crew, including my first officer, are at a completely different hotel. So now I've got to arrange separate transport. It's just been a bit of a...
They just don't listen.
Gotta love scheduling, right?
Yep, we love it.
Yes.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I understand that you were involved in some meetup activity since the last time that we recorded.
Oh, yes.
We can cover that very soon after we hear from Dr. Steph. What's been happening with you?
This time around, not a whole lot. I was up in Asheville over the weekend, which was very nice. Had a lovely weekend there. Although Sunday was a very cold day in North Carolina. Some of that same weather that affected kind of the Northeast made its way across here as well. And I actually drove home in the snow for the first time this season. On Sunday night. I mean, it was like gusty, windy, blowing snow across the road as I was trying to get through the mountain pass over just east of Asheville. So I was not ready for that yet. That was a little bit of a surprise. And now today it's 75 degrees again here. So
saw some of your tweets with the snowfall or sleet or whatever it was on the back.
It's kind of this like little pebbly snowfall. It wasn't really sleet. Like it was definitely more snow, but it wasn't the nicest snow. Not like the snow you're going to go out and pack into snowballs and make snowmen with or anything, but yeah, unpleasant.
So that same storm system was in play when I picked up a white slip trip, which is for us a regular. It pays regular time, not like the green slips like I like to do. That is like overtime pay, double pay. But I needed to had a 30th and 31st, so I picked up an overnight to Portland, Maine, where I got a chance to meet up with Micah. But to do it, to get there, I had to fly through that awful storm system. They were calling it a nor'easter, but actually it's more appropriately, it should be more appropriately titled a southwester. I guess that's what you'd say that, because everything was blowing from the southwest, not the northeast. And the winds were horrible. And the whole way up there, we're trying to anticipate what the winds are going to be because this is a fast-moving system, and the winds are swinging around and they're going all over the place. And so, of course, all the runways that we've briefed were completely out the window because now they're landing on 29 with a exactly 30-knot crosswind, and the crosswind limit on my airplane is 30 knots. And then the airplane ahead of us, a JetBlue, reported moderate plus turbulence in the last 400 to 500 feet down to touchdown. And I thought, lovely, this is going to be fun.
Yay!
No, it was not fun at all. It was one of the hardest landings I've ever had to make in my life.
Wow.
I'd say definitely the top 5, and it may be actually the toughest one of all. It was the winds are. I kept thinking to myself, please don't give me a wind shear, reactive wind shear warning. And it didn't because it wasn't bouncing around that much, I guess. But it was quite interesting. I had all my leg into the right rudder to keep the nose going straight down the runway, and put it on the runway. It wasn't pretty, but got it down, and I was just happy to be there. And I was telling the first officer as we were taxiing in, I said, "You might have to stand at the door because I don't think I can stand up." Because my leg
is going to fall off.
My leg is shaking from, having to push it down.
To push it into the rudder for that long.
I was probably, putting a lot of pressure on it too, trying to push it even more.
Just means you got to go to the gym more often, more leg days.
I probably should, yeah.
Just kidding.
And
poor you, Jeff.
What's that?
I said, poor you, Jeff. It's obviously one of those days where you think you're probably not paid enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting when you're in a situation like that, it's obvious to the passengers and the flight attendants, everybody on your airplane, that was one heck of a landing that you had to pull out of the hat. And it's almost every single passenger said, nice landing, great landing, for the conditions and blah, blah, blah. You could just tell that they were probably just happy to be alive. Because it was
like
even
Thank goodness you didn't screw that one up, buddy.
Flight attendants were going like, I didn't know where this thing was going because, the nose was just like swinging, 20 degrees this way, 20 degrees that way. We're getting, up and down turbulence and everything else. And it was like Mr. Toad's wild ride. And anyway, so made it. Well. And so I got a chance to meet up with Micah, and it was worth it, Micah. Although please don't ask me to do that again. I don't know if I want to do that again. Anyway. So, unfortunately, I didn't get a picture or a recording with Micah, but there was a meetup earlier. Actually, we recorded last, Wednesday or Thursday? On Friday of last week, there was a little meetup in Atlanta because Dave Abbey, one of our APG community members, was in the Atlanta area. And he said, why don't we do a meetup? And I thought, that's a great idea. And so I do have some audio of that. You think we're ready to play that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. So, hey, I'm here at the Manchester Arms in Atlanta near the airport on Virginia Avenue, and we're having a great time. We have a great meetup here. The guest of honor is Dave Abbey from New York. And Dave is taking a picture of me right now. And I'm going to hand the microphone to him because he's going to talk to you about this awesome meetup.
Hello, Airline Pilot Guy community. This is Dave, as Jeff has mentioned. And what did I say? Oh yeah, this is. We might want to redo this, but we're not ready.
Like Micah, you're on all the podcasts now.
This is.
You can't keep him straight.
This is extremely embarrassing, and if you've known how little beer I have, it's even more embarrassing. I'm only on my first pint. Anyway, Airline Pilot Guy, fantastic community. So, as Jeff said, we're here at the at the Manchester Arms, and got a group of about 10 of us. And basically, I came down to Atlanta to meet in person some of the great people in the community and have them show me around Atlanta, do a little bit on my own. And just quickly, today, I had basically an Acme day. I went to, they have an Acme museum in Atlanta at the airport. And they have some great displays. And my friend Sylvester took me on a tour of the museum. And then also, Dispatcher Mike took me on a tour of the operations center, basically where it all happens for Acme. Incredible to visit. And one more thing that Mike did yesterday was he took me to the flying in his small beach aircraft, and we had a great time flying around the Atlanta metro area. We almost got wiped out by net jets, but if it happened, I wouldn't have been here to talk about it. Mike got us out of the way, so it was a really great flight. Let me control the plane for a bit, and I didn't know what I was doing, but again, we got on the ground thanks to Mike. So, having a great time. I'm glad we had a great turnout. So, I know I'm a bit long-winded, but here comes Dispatcher Tom.
Hi, everybody. Dispatcher Tom here, enjoying the evening with all of our friends at the Manchester Arms.
Well, man, a few words. Here we go. Jim, do you want to say anything?
Sure. Hi, guys. Dispatcher Jim here. Again, just enjoying the company here. Beautiful evening here in Hapeville, Georgia, and very happy to be out and be a part of the gathering tonight.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Jim.
Hey, everybody. This is Sylvester Pittman, and I'm not a dispatcher. But I am the Airline Guys on Twitter and Facebook, so please follow us, Airline Guys, on Twitter and Facebook. It's great to be out meeting everybody, talking about aviation stuff, and this stuff never gets old.
Well, depends on who you ask. Would you like to say something, Rebecca?
I'm Rebecca Cochran. I'm Chris Cochran's wife, and I'm here because I'm a supportive wife.
We're very sorry. A suffering spouse.
Hey, and this is Chris Cochran, the spouse making her suffer. Not a dispatcher as well, just a great aviation enthusiast, but having a good conversation here and hanging out and having some beers and yeah, thanks for organizing this.
Well, it wasn't me. It was some other people, but I'm having a great time.
Bonjour à tout le monde. I'm I'm Leandro. I'm Italian from France. Came all the way for this meetup. Super excited. Really happy to be here. I'm a private pilot, and I'm starting my instrument rating in 1 week from now. Super cool. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Oh, so nice to meet you, Leandro.
Everybody, it's Dispatcher Mike. David, thanks for everyone for putting this all together. I've said in the past, these.
Hello.
Okay. I broke the microphone. I turned it on, so.
Yeah, but I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Okay, good. Do you want to start over? Yeah. All right, everybody, it's Dispatcher Mike here. Thanks to David Abbey for setting this all up. Coming down to Atlanta on his vacation on the slow transportation system. I know David's still stuck back in those early 1900s, and these things called airplanes got invented where you can travel faster. But I guess sometimes it's good to take the slow route places. David, thanks for giving me the opportunity to excuse to go flying on Thursday. It was really great. It was a gorgeous day to go up flying. $100 hamburger, come on back, and got to go underneath the Atlanta Hartsfield final traffic and got to go over it, and then almost got to get hit by an Embraer. But I'm thankful for the ADSB in my airplane and on my iPad, so I saw it happening. I knew it was happening, so I was able to quickly change my altitude and realized that they weren't going to change theirs, so I better change mine so we didn't make a loud noise over Stone Mountain. And then all that. So like I've always said, if you have a chance to come to a meetup or if you see where Jeff's going to be near your area, just give him a shout. Join the Slack team. Send your email to Hillel. Join that. It's super easy to get one of these set up, and there's community members all over the place where you can come in.
Always nice to Mike. It's such a big part of our community, and of course his own community with his awesome podcast, Flying and Life. And wow, just this is grand, being with all these people here at Manchester Arms, and yeah, we just put our food order in, and we're waiting for that, and it's just great. Hope you enjoyed hearing about our little meetup here, and I guess that's it. They're moving on with conversation and such, so signing out. And next time I'll actually listen to the whole thing and realize that I have to edit it a little bit. But
nah, we like it in its raw form. That's more interesting.
So for the audio only show, I'll cut out that first attempt by Mike. Maybe I'll just leave it in there. Yeah, we have technical issues even at meetups. So
yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Those little recordings are rife for problems.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Liz. Not one of Jeff's smoothest recordings, it must be said.
Well, it all depends how many beers he's had, Liz.
Yeah, and I was actually drinking beer that night because I didn't want to make anybody feel bad, that they were all drinking beer and I wasn't.
Yeah, because that would make people feel terrible.
Yeah.
I feel terrible about drinking beer when other people are not drinking beer.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I've ever said those words.
But anyway, so you heard the Italian in France, Leandro?
Oh, yeah.
Leandro Ferrari. What an amazing name. I love that.
He's
name.
in the chat room right now.
I see him in the chat room. Hey, Leandro. So he was one, as you just heard, one of the folks at the meetup, and he brought a nice gift for me. He brought me some bottles of this beer, and let me see if I can pull it up. I went to their website, and it takes you directly to their Facebook page. They are out of Paris, France, and he gave me. How did I say that? How do you say that? Paris?
Huh?
Paris? I just heard you say something.
Yeah, I just said oui.
Yeah. Okay. It's called O'Clock Brewing, not 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, but just O'Clock Brewing in Paris. And the brew that he brought me was called Jet Lag. And,
oh, nice.
jet lag IPA, and it was awesome. And I don't know what happened to them all, Leandro. All 4 of those things. I think they're gone. Yeah, I'm not doing very well.
A little elf came and took them away.
Hang on a minute.
I'm not doing very.
There were 4 of them, and there are 4 of us, and you drank them all?
Well, he didn't. He did not specify that I was supposed to give them. Maybe I should have. Leandro, he's in the chat room right now. Was I supposed to give those?
At you.
Was I supposed to give those to everybody else? I'll have to look for them, see if I can find them. If I can't find them, I might need you to give me some more.
Did they come from Paris? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Next time
I'm
you're
sure
in
you can
Paris
find
and
them
come back
nearby.
over.
Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, well, just take my word for it. They were really good.
Oh, he said you're in the clear. He said no, it was just for you. You're fine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, he's just saying that.
I know.
Yeah, save the
Doesn't
face
want you
for
to
me.
feel
Thank you.
bad.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a pleasure meeting you, Leandro. I understand that you're going to be leaving Atlanta, going home to France soon. And anyway, I was just glad that you were able to join us down there. Mostly a meetup of dispatchers, apparently. But anyway, we had a great time at the Manchester Arms on Virginia Avenue in Hapeville, which is really close to the Atlanta airport. So the next day, so Colonel Jeff Felmuth had a trip. He was laying over in Atlanta, but it wasn't on Friday night. It was the next night, Saturday night. And so I drove down in really crappy, rainy weather, but it was worth it because I got a chance to meet up with Jeff and his first officer, Rob. And then after Rob left, Jeff and I talked a little bit more and made it just a really quick little recording here. Let me play that if you don't mind. Hopefully I won't have to edit this. Hey there. I am at yet another meetup, and with this guy. Now, you've heard of him so many times, those of you who have been listening to the show. He has been at so many major events through the development and evolution of the Airline Pilot Guy show. In fact, this person, who you'll hear in just a second, you'll recognize his voice, has been with me and the show before it was the Airline Pilot Guy show. When I was I'm Captain Jeff. Well, I'm still Captain Jeff, Catholic pilot. He's helping me. He's he's moving his mouth trying to help me. Yeah, the Catholic pilot days back September 2009, October 2009, something like that. My first episode was recorded in Memphis, Tennessee, and Jeff has been with the show that long, believe it or not, and got a chance to meet up. He let me know that he was going to be here in Atlanta overnight, and he and his first officer, Rob, were sitting near the bar, not at the bar, and I drove down from Roswell to the airport here to gather with them and have some great food and drink and conversation. And I'm going to let Jeff talk now.
Oh my goodness! When you think about Catholic Pilot 1 that many years ago, I just got an iPhone. It was like the first podcast I ever found, and so I've been around for a while. Over 300 episodes is coming up, and I really wish I could be there, but I can't. I had enough fun at the 200 to not remember. And I guess I'm the definition of APG syndrome.
You did it the easy way.
Maybe. It helps being a Jeff. Maybe that made it easier. Yeah. So I can't speak enough about the community that Jeff's been able to develop over the years, and the honor I've had of being part of it from the beginning, and the friendship I've developed not just with Jeff, but with everybody in the community from England to Australia to New Zealand to South America, the people I've gotten to chat with in different ways and forms, and the meetups like this, and it's been a real pleasure just to listen and watch the growth of the podcast and just the whole community thing. It's been great.
So we talk a lot about in our career field, seniority. This is the most senior APGer in the. No, you're not that senior, but as far as seniority for schedules and vacations and days off and everything else, you got it. You're number one. Anyway, so it's always great to see you, Jeff.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. I'll get my special APG plaque one of these years. I'm not worried about it. just knowing everybody and being part of this has been a real life's pleasure for me. It really has.
Well, the pleasure has all been ours. All right, that's it. Hey, I didn't have to edit that one, and you could tell I had less to drink that night. Okay, let's see. So, still no Dana. We're still waiting for Dana. Hopefully he'll join us soon. But in the meantime, I know that, Nick, you were involved in a couple of meetups recently, right?
Yeah, last Sunday down at Goodwood. I won't say much about it because there's an audio coming up. And last night I caught up with Dave Abbey, who we've already heard once. He seems to be repeating himself. He's appearing everywhere. Dave Abbey and Eoin from Ireland came across. He's on a holiday here in New York. So it was great to catch up with them last night.
Okay. So do we have to listen to David Abbey again?
I'm afraid so.
Ah, okay. Well, let's do the Goodwood meetup first. How about?
Excellent. Hi, everybody. It's Captain Nick, and we are at I don't know, actually, Goodwood. Jeff seems to find that for some reason a very amusing word. We're at Goodwood Aerodrome. We're sitting in the old air traffic control tower, which is circa World War II, and it is absolutely fabulous. Lovely sunny day. It's great. We've got a whole bunch of APGers here, and I'm just going to go around and ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves and why they're here, why they like APG, all that kind of stuff. So first man I've got is right here.
Hello, I'm Mark Harvey. I'm an aviation photographer as a hobby.
You were on PT UK, weren't you?
I was, yes. I must admit.
Right, well, I'm moving on now.
Yeah, I listen to that mainly. I listen to APG when I can, particularly if I can catch the live shows, rather than sort of try and catch up in the car. Because otherwise it just takes too many hours.
And quickly, which is your favourite aviation photograph you've ever taken?
I would have to say the Sea Vixen air-to-air.
Oh, that's a story, though. I'd like to find out more about this. Who's this chap?
Jonathan. I'm sufferer, listener of APG and PT UK.
APG syndrome is a killer.
Yeah. Not aviation based in my career, but hobby wise, always been aviation.
Where have you come from today?
Swindon.
Excellent.
Just outside Swindon.
Excellent.
Those grey things.
Military.
Now, this man I do know because he's the one that organised this. Here's Ruben Wells.
I'm Ruben, private pilot, been flying for about 20 years, came in today from Thurrock, stopped at Red Hill on the way to pick up Stefan. I think Stefan was the one that originally requested the APG UK meetup.
Yeah, but we don't listen to Stefan, do we? No.
You don't want to talk to me.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Hi, Matt.
Hi.
We've got PT UK here, so I don't know quite why they're here. Why are you here?
Carlos made me drive the car.
Oh, right. Oh, you're back to bus driving again?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, absolutely.
Dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, great to see you.
And you,
Thanks very much.
Graham Haley, training air traffic controller here in the UK. Aerodrome and approach. Hopefully I'll be joining them at Heathrow soon. I was at the tower there yesterday and it was good fun. So.
Excellent.
More fun here today though. Much better equipped tower as well. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was old Baldy at work yesterday?
No, he wasn't.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's typical, isn't it?
It's definitely a shorter walk to this tower as well.
Sounds nice. Anyway, thanks very much for coming. Now, this chap is fascinating. I've got to do a whole plain tale interview with this guy, I'm sure. Tell us exactly what you do.
Well, hello, APG crew. This is Armando. I'm U.S. Air Force here in the UK. Being hosted by our gracious Brits in East Anglia. If you've never been there, come visit. I am a CV-22 crew member, the Osprey, there at RAF Mildenhall, and then also a commercial pilot back in the US.
Brilliant. And now he's told us that someone's probably going to shoot him. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll just change my name. It's Jim now.
Jim. We like Jim. We've got a guy who has done what a lot of pilots want to do. He's got his first job with a commercial airline. Tell us, what it's like?
Awesome. It's taken 10 years. My name's Stuart. I'm from Norwich, friends with Matt and Carlos. And I just came because I thought it was free drinks today.
Yeah. Well, that's when Captain Jeff is there, and he opens up the APG credit card. Unfortunately, he hasn't given me one of those. So tell us about this new job you got.
Yeah, I'm going to be flying the Embraer 145 for BMI from Bristol all around Europe.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. Congratulations. Moving on to someone who is hoping to get a job like that before too long. This is Patrick from Northern Ireland, but not there at the moment.
No, I'm over in Bournemouth at BCFT training for my commercial pilot's license and my instrument rating. So I'm about 10 hours into my instrument rating, so a lot of work to do.
Excellent. Now you've got all your ATPL exams done and dusted?
That's right, yeah, all done and out of the way.
That must be have been quite a job, a relief when you finished.
Massive relief, yeah, but yeah, glad they're done, yeah.
And how's the instrument flying going?
Ask me in another 2-3 months.
Brilliant. Well, and the airline you're going to hope to fly for has a sort of 4-leaf clover or something on the tail, doesn't it?
Yeah, or a big harp, golden harp maybe. I don't know.
Oh, a golden harp? I know. We're not even going to talk to you now if you're going to go work for them. Here we have a very famous man who is eloquent in the extreme. Carlos.
Hello, greetings, Nick. How are you?
I'm very well. This is just wonderful seeing you here.
I know, it's funny we should be up here, isn't it, really, with all these amazing people.
Absolutely. And a fabulous place.
It is an amazing place. We had a good walk around and we've seen some lovely GA aircraft flying around the area, which has been good. And I think I'm going to go and let Gemma know that I've just booked a £4,500 flight on the Spitfire. Oh, did I just say that? Cut that one.
No, we're going to broadcast that.
Joint account.
Yeah, exactly right. Anyway, it's lovely to see PT UK here. Right, I'm going around the table now. Who's this young man?
Hi, my name's David Collier. I'm a lorry driver.
You don't look old enough to come out of school and you drive a lorry?
Everyone says that to me.
I wonder why.
It's because I look about 12.
Very youthful looking pilot. I used to suffer from that myself, but not anymore, as you can tell.
Yeah, I'm a student pilot here. Just finished up most of my training and I hope to get my skills test next weekend.
Excellent. That's absolutely brilliant. Here's the lovely Mrs. Anderson.
Hello, I'm Julie Anderson, and I've just come to see what you lot get up to.
Are you impressed?
Suitably impressed, yes.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, there's not a beer in sight, is there?
There may be later.
Sorry?
There may be later.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Now, this gent I haven't seen since Farnborough. You note how to pronounce that, please, Jeff? Farnborough, okay.
Yeah, hi there, it's Dave Willis here, long-term APG listener, and yes, in Farnborough 4A, I was there a couple of years ago. Great to meet Jeff and the rest of the gang, and yeah, I thought I'd come along here today and see what the fuss is about. It's great to have a UK meet-up, and I was last here 6 weeks ago when I had an aerobatic flight doing all that washing machine stuff, so yeah, great to be here.
That does sound like fun. What was it in?
It was in a T-67 Firefly, a little two-seater. Fortunately, they wouldn't let me up on my own.
Very sensible.
Yeah, but very, very good. Yeah, 30 minutes is enough aerobatics for me, and then a nice poodle back to the airfield.
And did you have to make use of the little bag they give you?
No, I was very good. I did open the window on the way home, though, because I got a little bit warm. But no, it was very enjoyable, very exciting. I can see what all the fuss is about, but maybe a hot air balloon trip will be on the cards next time.
Excellent. I don't think you have windows on those, do you? Now, here's a man who I know and love, who is going to show me around Heathrow air traffic very shortly. Adam, lovely to see you.
Good to see you again, Nick.
Where's your lovely wife? She's not here.
She has probably just finished work about 10 minutes ago. She was on a morning shift this morning.
Excellent. Who have we got under the chair?
This is Betty, who some of you might have seen photos of before. She's being a tart this morning at Goodwood. But yeah, she likes going out visiting airfields. So we'll go for a walk later.
So what's new in your world?
Keeping busy at Heathrow, working on a lot of projects that hopefully we should come to fruition in the new year. Try and reduce the amount of time you spend in Ockham and Bovingdon. Stack.
But you know I love those places. It's so nice.
Give me your flight details and we'll make sure you spend more time there.
All right. There must be someone on the company I don't like. Who's this?
This is Stefan Caudry, flight of Red Hill student pilots. Done about 20 hours, and it's my first APG meetup.
Well, actually, we don't get them very often in the UK. So, what do you think? Is it fun?
Yeah, really good. Great location, great chatting to everyone so far, and talking aviation. So, yeah.
And what do you do to make enough money to be able to be a student pilot?
I work in marketing, so that kind of funds it. But yeah, I wouldn't say I can afford it. It's been bankrolled by Barclaycard, I think. So
we've all done that before. We've all done that before. Okay, around the table here to the chap that may have come the furthest. Is that right?
Oh, Isle of Wight. So.
Oh no. There was someone here earlier I was speaking to who've come. Oh, of course, from Cornwall. But Isle of Wight is not very far away. But there's a bit of water between us and them.
There is, and I'd hope to fly over it and pick you up there.
Yeah, that's right. So this is Richard Adams, and he was indeed hopefully going to fly 172 over and land, and we were going to go for a little trip round the Isle of Wight, but somebody broke the airplane.
They did, not me, I hasten to add.
Are you sure?
Yes, definitely, but with no prop, no, there's no aircraft, so.
Oh, well, yeah, you've got a very heavy glider. So you've just flying for fun?
Yes, just a PPL, yeah.
And do you get many hours in?
Not as much as I'd like, no.
Yeah, I expect that.
Bad weather.
Oh, yeah, and this is the wrong time of the year. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for coming. Lovely to see you. And finally, over to this fine gentleman here, who I know flies a lot of model aircraft.
That's right. Yes, it's Mark Heffer here from Hastings, which is only about 60 miles away, so we're not too far.
Now, you used to actually fly hang gliders, is that right?
I did fly hang gliders. Claim to fame there, I actually filed an air near miss for 2 Jaguars once.
Both of them? You nearly hit both of them?
Well, technically I was on the ground at the time, but they flew over so close I could see the pilot looking over and we could smell the av fuel. It was an amazing experience. Well, it was an experience for me. What the pilots thought when they looked down and saw a couple of guys with their hang gliders waving at them, I really don't know.
That sounds like fun. Now, 250 feet is the normal minimum height for a Jaguar low flying. Was that about right?
Absolutely not. No, we're on the top of the downs. We're on the top of the downs near Alfriston in East Sussex, and I could clearly see the pilot turn his head and look at me. 50 foot, maybe a little bit higher, but not as much as 100.
I love it. I love it. Excellent. Anyway, what are your current aviation hobbies?
Flying anything radio controlled, really, and that's it.
That sounds brilliant fun. Now, have I missed anybody out? No? Excellent. Well, that's it from us here at Goodwood. Cheers. Thank you very much indeed for coming. And I'm handing back over to Jeff.
Well, thank you, Nick. Oh, so professionally done, yeah, with the music and everything. And
oh, my
nice
pleasure.
going.
But what a great bunch of guys. We were so lucky. People from all sorts of backgrounds, some really true professional people, some new joiners into the aviation industry, some people with just flying interests and just listeners. It was a fantastic mix, and they're all great guys and girls.
Well, your presence isn't only demanded in the UK, but apparently you're quite the celebrity in the New York City area as well. And here's a little snippet with our APG community members, Eoin and Dave.
There was an Englishman, an Irishman, and an American. And they were flying across the Atlantic in a twin-engine airplane. Ooh, what? Let's say a Boeing binliner. Okay, now being a binliner, halfway across the Atlantic, an engine fails. And being a binliner, it can't maintain its height. The aircraft's drifting down towards the ocean, and the captain leans back and shouts through the door, "You're going to have to throw everything overboard." So the Englishman, the Irishman, and the American start ripping all the stuff out of the galleys and throwing it out the doors, and they're throwing seats out, and eventually it's just the three of them left. There's nothing left inside the airplane, and the captain says, "We're still going down, you're going to have to throw something else out." And the Englishman looks at the other two and says, "This is for my country," and he jumps out. And the Irishman looks at the American and says, "This is for my country," and he throws the American out. So here we are in a lovely barbecue joint on Long Island, and guess who is here with us?
It's Eoin. I am the Harpjet cabin crew member, and I am so happy to be in the States right now. I've come over to New York for 10 days. Nice long holiday, and I can't wait to get started with this much needed holiday.
Yeah. Owen has had a tough time of it recently. We know. Who are you going to meet up with while you're here?
So Matt Smith is coming over from the PTU UK. He's coming over on business, so we'll get together and we'll be staying in Manhattan together, and that'll be.
Main man Micah involved here.
Yeah, so I believe we're meeting up with Micah and a few others later on in the week.
And that's fantastic. And who are you staying with? Oh, no, let's see. He's right here. Who's this bloke? Is your landlord, yeah?
Yep. Hey, everybody. It's Dave Abbey here. And, yeah, I've when I heard Owen was coming you're coming for 10 days? Oh, my God. But I can put him up for a few days, and I think we'll have to part ways. But anyway, I'm glad I met Owen today at the subway. He flew in from Dublin. And but part of what he brought did not arrive with him.
Oh, God, yes. We almost forgot. Now, you flew over with an Irish airline, didn't you?
I did. I flew over with the Irish national carrier, and they didn't take my checked-in luggage with them on that.
I don't believe that. They left your bag at home.
Yeah, they left I believe it's in Dublin. I'm a little bit skeptical as whether it's actually left Heathrow Airport, but I believe it's in Dublin and it's coming tomorrow. That's what they've told me.
Well, we love airline flying, don't we?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So anyway, have a great holiday here, Owen. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for putting this fine young man up. And let's just say a quick goodbye.
Thank you very much, Nick. And yeah, it's been a lovely meal and great start to the holiday.
Yep. Thanks again, Nick. Great meeting with you today, and thanks for all you do with the podcast. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
It's such a funny joke. I have to add.
Micah said it was one of his. I think he invented it. Yeah, a couple of centuries ago.
Okay.
Yeah, at least 2 centuries ago.
I've broken another copyright, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think that one's definitely in the public domain. It's been around long enough. You're good.
Okay, that's good.
It's a bit like singing "Happy Birthday." You're right.
Look who I see in the Hangout on Air. Yes, joining us, former regional jet pilot and now mainline Acme, soon-to-be captain, Captain Dana Colton. Hello, Dana.
Good afternoon. Wow, it's weird seeing this setup and actually being on air for a change. It's been a while. It's been 3 weeks.
I don't know. It's yeah. So what? I guess you have a lot of catching up to do here. What have you been up to the last few weeks? Explain your absence.
Well, it's certainly great to be back in presence of such great talent on air. As I listened to the last couple of episodes via when I was working out and doing various other things. So great to catch up with everybody and listen. I had a very unique experience and opportunity, and that is I had the opportunity to go down and visit Havana, Cuba, which for Americans has been off limits since 1959, I think, for the most part. Let me tell you, I was completely floored at how nice the people are in the city of Havana, and the Cuban people are very courteous. Gracious. Pretty shocked at how poor it is there. However, I think the regime change, even though it's still with Raul, he has a whole different perspective on what's in the world, and I think they're going to move forward. Really neat to take a ride. I took a ride in 1952 DeSoto convertible. Really enjoyed that. Got to use a little of my Spanish skills to go ahead and communicate with the locals. And the taxi driver was fantastic. He took us all around Havana, and we got a very in-depth, detailed tour of different areas. Even got to tour a cigar factory. That was really cool. And I have no idea. I don't smoke. So
how many virgins were in the cigar factory? Because I understand they roll the cigars on the thigh of a virgin or something, isn't
Well,
that?
after I was there, Nick, there was none left.
Good to have you back, Dana.
That didn't take long.
Well, I am a cigar virgin, so I've never had a cigar. So.
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Oh, I understand the context now. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So it was really. I mean, that's when I was going last week. I was unavailable, and when you did the show, just been enjoying life, working as little as possible, but still working. And the reason for the whole cruise on a very short notice actually was because Julie was able to finally secure a new position that she's very excited to be in this new company away from a major bottling company based in Atlanta. And that was kind of a long-term nightmare for her, and it's like she's a whole new person. So that's really the reason why we went on the cruise, is to celebrate her success. And we just had a grand old time. I would highly recommend, if you live in the States, do it before the borders close down. There was a UN vote yesterday, and Israel and the United States were the only ones to vote against any further expansion of Cuban economic activities or blockade or whatever. I didn't read the whole thing. But if you live in another country and you have access to Cuba, before it becomes too commercialized, the buildings there and the atmosphere, go visit it, because it was a very unique experience. And I've been to, like the rest of us here, I've been to a lot of different places in this world, and it was really, really unique. So go if you can. So that's what I've been up to.
Well, we're so glad that you were able to join us this week for this week's show. So
I am so happy to be here. Yay!
Awesome. Wow. Well, this has been a huge introduction period on this particular show. Thank you for bearing with us if you're still listening. But we had a lot of things going on this week in our off-show time, the meetups and such. So.
Oh, come on, Jeff. Everybody still loves listening. Come on. Everybody's listening. They're all there.
Not everybody. Trust me. Not everybody. Okay. But that's okay. Most of you enjoy kind of getting. Very quickly, let's do a coffee fun thing, and then we'll move on to the news. What do you think?
Yay. Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. All right, while they continue singing in the background, the Java Jive, let me tell you a little bit about the Coffee Fund. That's your way to become involved in producing the show, helping us produce the show every week. And a couple different ways to do that. You can learn about the different ways by heading over to the Airline Pilot Guy website, airlinepilotguy.com/coffee, and you'll see that we have a couple different ways to do it. And the first one, the oldest way, is what we call now the Coffee Fund Classic method. And it is basically a PayPal donation, and you can make a one-time donation or a recurring donation, as Steve Trumbull does. And every month we get a nice donation from him. Thank you, Steve. But most of our folks now are using a service called Patreon. They're patrons of the show, and that's patreon.com/airlinepilotguy. And there you can sign up to give us a little bit of money per episode. And since the last episode, we have a few new patrons at Patreon. They are TKettle15. Don't know exactly who that is, but that's TKettle15. The SWLing Post, and I'm gathering, I went to the website and I gather it had something to do with shortwave ham radio stuff. So thank you for becoming a patron. Mark Lebrowski, up there in Lake Norman, just north of where Steph is, and Eric Greiner, and Jessica Sanders. So welcome to the Coffee Fund cadre, one and all. And again, if you want to get involved in the Coffee Fund, become part of the Coffee Fund cadre, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Boy.
Stand by for news.
From the Hamilton Spectator. I don't know if is that Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, perhaps? I don't know. But this is a story, it has nothing to do with Canada. It has all to do with India. The airline SpiceJet Limited, an Indian budget carrier that's seen its stock zoom tenfold in 3 years, wants to open up the third biggest aviation market even more. That means targeting the billion Indians who've never flown before, either because they can't afford it or because they don't live near a functioning airport. The airline is in talks with Japan's Satoshi Holdings to buy about 100 amphibious Kodiak planes that can land anywhere, including on water, gravel, or in an open field. The deal, valued at about $400 million, would help SpiceJet capitalize on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's ambitious plan to connect the vast nation by air without waiting for billions of dollars in upgrades to colonial-era infrastructure. Airports are in short supply in India. SpiceJet chair Ajay Singh, I don't know how you pronounce that, but anyway, we're just going to call him AS. Lots of the growth in India is happening in small markets, but those small markets have little or no connectivity. So we are looking for a solution where we can get flights to places where no airports exist. So these airplanes are amphibious float planes, basically. The Kodiak single-engine turboprop airplanes. They remind me a lot of like a Cessna Caravan.
They look a lot like a Caravan, yeah. And you could put them on floats and all of that.
Yeah, and apparently, I don't know if they're all going to be the float plane models, or maybe they're going to have some float plane models and some that have the big giant tires that they can just land. And I would imagine that's probably what they're going to do, because if they're talking about landing on gravel or, just unimproved fields and that kind of thing, they're not going to be able to do it with the floats.
Well, they can.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, but the floats, I mean, you can land on land, but it has to be a relatively prepared surface, I think.
Grass. Yeah.
Yeah.
gravel.
But,
I mean, do those floats have little wheels? But they're certainly not designed for a rough field landing, no. They're
That's
going to
what I
have to
mean.
have
Yeah,
various.
They do have wheels.
variants.
It depends on the float plane manufacturer. I mean, the float manufacturer. But yeah, I think if they're talking about landing on really unimproved land places, then I would imagine that it would have to have those big, like 29-inch wheels or whatever. I think that's one of the.
They can
options.
attempt it. They can attempt it once. They just probably wouldn't want to land back on water again because it may not float so well.
Good point.
Maybe
That's why
more
we
of a
have
submarine
Dana.
at that point.
Yes, it's an excellent submarine.
It's our
I mean, this
technical
sounds
expert
just
there.
a lot like what's been going on in Canada for years, doesn't it? I mean, the Canadians get around so well using various models of light aircraft, some of which carry quite a few passengers. They can pop them into lakes. They can land on the beaches beside them, all these things. And it's about time, I think, India had a go at this, because it's ideally suited for moving all these people around.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a novel, well, not a novel idea, but for them, I guess it is. And they're trying to make air travel as prolific as they can. Prolific, there we go.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where they're going to get the pilots from, because we're starting to have enough problems finding pilots for major carriers, let alone for these dozens of aircraft they're going to be looking for pilots to work on. So I don't know. How's that work?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you
hear you.
I'm back. Lost my connection.
Oops.
Okay. You look like you're Skyping pretty bad.
Yep. So before you, no, it's Jeff. Before you joined, Dana, and actually before we started anything, Jeff was having a lot of bandwidth difficulty. We were almost debating not even doing the show because of it. So
yeah, it's looking pretty rough.
Well, he's been fine for the first third of the show, so
yeah.
it's only just now he's starting to.
Well, I'm here. We might as well wrap it up now.
I think we'll just continue on. No.
Hey James, James here in the chat room is asking when my Cleveland trip is. It's maybe the middle of the month, James. I can't get on for some reason in the chat room, but I don't know. I may have to change that trip, so that's why I haven't been 100% with that. So I'm just answering James.
Liz, it is not quite 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I guess that could be Netflix time for everyone.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
I thought Jeff had gone onto his phone. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
You're a little intermittent, but yes, you're good.
Now you know how I feel when I'm at home.
I'd really rather not know how you feel.
Well, they tore up my yard, and I still don't have good bandwidth yet.
Oh, do you not? Oh my God!
Well, they haven't turned on the fiber as of yet in the neighborhood. So
well, sneak out there and just turn the tap on when it's dark at night. They won't know.
I'll take a pitchfork and stick my pitchfork into it. Maybe I can seal it that way.
Tell you what, why don't I go the very lowest bandwidth option I have here, so you might just see like a ghost image of me. Whoa.
Yeah, you look like you're giving an interview and you don't want them to know your identity, on the or something.
I need to change my voice.
Exactly.
Probably very sensible.
Okay, well, I love technology.
Isn't it marvelous?
You feel like in this day and age, the end of 2017, like we should just have internet everywhere at this point, right? Like that works and it's reliable.
Yeah, but apparently hotels aren't really interested in having bandwidth available for people to do video shows.
They probably never will be.
That's really inconsiderate on their part, I think.
Maybe I should just turn the video off completely. What do you think? Yeah.
That's less distracting, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can just see me. My little avatar, sounds like or looks like it has sound waves coming from it.
The really pretty mustache.
Well, thank you. I forgot to mention that. Oh, shoot. Go back to the show notes. Just a reminder, we talked about it last week. The Movember challenge is still in play. First Officer Craig started up a group of folks who were trying to raise some money for, I forgot what the cause was again. Something Movember. Here, where's that link? Do we have that?
It's in the show notes.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm quickly opening that up, and hopefully that won't dump my bandwidth. It's the moteam.co / Captain Jeff's Mustache Crew. Anyway, just look for the link in the show notes, and you can join Captain Jeff's Mustache Crew, and and join us in the month of November by growing out your beard and mustache. I guess the goal is to see who can come up with the mustache that's closest to Captain Jeff's. And no, Steph, you're not allowed to participate.
It's all right. I went to the salon today, so
okay,
good. Everything's taken care of.
I was going to say they have to be old like you too, right?
No, you don't have to be old like me. Thank you, Dana.
For it to look like yours.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, you
Oh,
would.
yeah. Well, you can use some dye or something in it.
Don't you miss me?
Yeah, really do. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention before I moved on to the news that I again neglected to, I prepared these show notes, and it's good for me to look at them once in a while. It was Nev's birthday yesterday, I believe. Happy birthday, Nev.
Happy birthday.
He is in some tropical locale right now, I think, enjoying his birthday week, perhaps. So happy birthday. You don't look a day over 60. I don't know how you do it.
I
sure
don't think
he's not
he's
that old.
actually 60 yet.
No, just kidding.
He's probably not even 50.
Actually, I know how old Nev is, but I won't say.
Oh, I don't. I have no idea how old. He looks to me like he's in his 40s to me. So, so happy birthday, Nev, from the entire APG community. I saw a lot of love being thrown your way yesterday. So, but I just wanted to mention it on the show as well. And then also, I believe that Carlos's lovely wife, Gemma, is celebrating a birthday as well. I'm not sure if it's today or yesterday, but somewhere in this time frame. Do you know stuff?
It was today or yesterday. You are correct about that.
Okay. Anyway, happy birthday to the both of you from the APG crew.
Very much
right,
so.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
I guess we should do like this, applause, and all kinds of noise.
Nice.
There we go. Okay, now back to the news and the story about the Indian company SpiceJet. I guess we're finished with that one, aren't we?
Yes.
Or we were still talking about it, I guess, when I lost all my bandwidth. But I don't think there's really much to say other than that's kind of a cool idea, and I hope that they're successful with it.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right. So someone mentioned, I believe, in your meetup at Goodwood, Captain Nick, that they were almost had a collision in their glider, and just so happens that there was a collision, an actual collision, of a large glider. Well, I'm not sure how large it was, but in the Netherlands, the glider was soaring up and down the Dutch North Sea coast near Hillegom when the right-hand winglet was struck by a consumer drone. The drone was destroyed by the impact. The wingtip sustained serious delamination. The glider safely returned to Langeveld airstrip. So,
what was the drone consuming?
I don't know. Probably birds.
Gliders.
Yeah, that's true. A wingtip, or what do you call these? Winglet of a glider is what it was consuming. Has a picture here in the article. It will be in the show notes. You can take a look at it as well. But we're starting to see this more and more, and we've been talking about it for quite some time. That it's just a matter of time, and then all of a sudden, it seems like in just the last few weeks, we're hearing all kinds of stories about collisions with drones, airplanes with people in them colliding with drones. And in fact, I think hopefully we'll have time to get to it in the feedback section. There was a note from somebody talking about or maybe I have it in the feedback folder. But anyway, about a C-130 that actually collided with a drone earlier this year, and the investigation regarding that. So it's happening more and more, sadly.
Yep.
And hopefully we won't hear of one that is turns out to be a really bad event. Finally, the last thing we have here in the news, I said nose, let's see what I was doing there, was a Delta Airlines Boeing 757 was flying along, minding its own business, descending into, I guess it was a charter from, I'm trying to find the article.
Minneapolis. From Minneapolis to Chicago Midway. My favorite airport.
Why don't you continue with this?
Sure. They were carrying the basketball team of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they were descending towards Chicago when the nose cone of the aircraft received a large dent. It sounds like not that big of a deal until you see the picture. But the crew continued the flight for a safe landing on Midway's runway 31 center. They suspect something hit the nose of the aircraft. I would agree with that statement. A bird strike is actually being suspected, but I don't know what type of bird strike causes that type of damage. I'm interested to hear your all's, like actual big bird from Sesame Street.
Yeah, I think so. A frozen chicken, usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I mean, there'd be some evidence of bird parts left over, I would imagine, unless it's flying through a massive rainstorm. But even if it's flying through a massive rainstorm, the crew would probably see remnants around the windshield where it struck. So I don't know. This one kind of is suspicious. maybe it wasn't a lost drone or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. All the, the paint is only really scraped off around the edge where it's been dented in. I don't see a whole lot of like evidence of something else that was solid, like metallic or made of metal or plastic or something else. But I don't know. I could be completely off there.
I don't know.
But you're right. There's no bird parts either that you see, at least easily in these pictures.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, did they wash it? But is this the washed off version? That they of the photograph that they put out there? That could very.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think some of these were from the players that were on the plane, like as they got off.
Well,
actually, I don't know. It looks like it's from down on ground level, and they got off via. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I've hit a bird going into Hong Kong. It was a what we would have called a shite hawk, but I think they're just a big kite. Damn great big bird. And we whacked it, and it didn't leave the radome indented like that. The radome popped out again, but you could tell from the witness marks on the radome where it had deflected in and then popped out again. That's about the same circle as would have occurred there. And there was very little blood and guts on that because we hit it at relatively low speed. So we didn't splatter the bird all over it. It's a damn big, strong bird. I mean, the bird obviously didn't survive. There's some fishermen down there will have plucked him out of the water and cooked him. But yeah, that's about what would have happened. The radomes on our aircraft, I'm assuming the same, made of frangible material. They will actually break up if needs be, but they're also quite flexible. So if possible, the radome will pop out again and it can be used again. I think the aircraft flew again that evening.
Somebody had mentioned in the comments that it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that the radome had some kind of a internal structure failure. I guess there have been cases where radomes just kind of collapse upon themselves for whatever reason, but that doesn't seem like it would be very, I don't know.
Yeah, we had one on the show previously, didn't we, Jeff? It turned out to be some rather dodgy part that had been fitted to a rather dodgy airline. So
right, and wasn't that the one where they thought it was like a drone strike too, or something?
Something like that. It just turned out to have collapsed internally. So yeah, could have been that, but.
Well, I'll say it's what's the last thing the bird saw before it died?
Its rear end.
Thank you, Steph, for
You're welcome.
Cleaning it up.
I thought I'd jump in there real quick with some PG verbiage.
Sensed where that one was going. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully we'll find out what happened with that.
Actually, no, what I was going to say. I was going to say it's beak, but that's okay. You guys took it to the level. That's all on you guys.
Okay, it's all on us.
Sorry.
Yeah, well,
all right.
It would have been looking at its beak. My word.
Okay. I guess now time for the best part of the show, which is the end. No, your feedback. Here we go.
Captain, incoming message.
Thank you. All right, let's start with Len. Len asks us a question about a departure out of Hong Kong. Here we go. I'm going to read his feedback. He's Len on Lantau, which is a kind of key here in the story. I have a feeling you may be covering the recent immediate wrong turn after takeoff by a 747-8 at Hong Kong. This led to a flight over Lantau Island. While I was asleep in the vicinity of the flight path at the time, I have to admit that I missed the spectacle completely. Those GE NX engines are certainly quiet. I took advantage of a day when little fragrance was reducing the visibility over the harbor to take a picture of the northern shore of Lantau. I added a blue swoosh around the approximate flight path. He says not to scale, using the MK1 eyeball only. The little knoll to the right of the swoosh has an elevation of around 1,500 feet. There's a box on the SID chart reading, warning, due to terrain, right turn must not commence before Porpa/Rover. That's a navigation or waypoint. Despite this, there have been several recent cases of early turns. Hong Kong is congested with ATC doing their best to keep things moving along smartly. This leads to conditional clearances such as, quote, after right turn to Ramen, high speed approved. Locally based crews will understand that the right turn is assumed to commence at Porpa, not immediately. Porpa is around 7 nautical miles from the runway. Those who only occasionally fly into HKG or operate there for the first time could easily misunderstand this is a clearance to turn right immediately and increase speed. Perhaps Captain Nick or Miami Rick could comment on flying into HKG as an occasional visitor. Last but not least, thanks a lot for the great show. Take care. And again, that's from Len on Lantau. Every time he puts LOL, I'm thinking he's laughing out loud. But
I know it took me just a second. I was like, oh, just kidding.
I
That's
almost
his
said
name.
that, and they went, no, that's Len on Lantau. That's the way that's very, very clever of you. So the Aviation Herald actually covered the incident and said that they were investigating it, and this was back in September, late September. And I'm not sure what they've, but it sounds to me that that's exactly what happened. Perhaps there was just a miscommunication. The operator thought that meant to go ahead and start the right turn right away and resume their normal speed. But if you look at the radar plot on the satellite imagery on the Aviation Herald article, which will be in the show notes for you, you can see that they went right over this ridge line and they only cleared the peak by 600 and some odd feet. Big old 747, big old jet airliner. Surprised that didn't wake up Len in his house there on Lantau Island.
Yeah, well, that's new modern technology. It's so quiet. Even if it flies right over your head, you can't hear it.
Yeah. That could have been a major crash if.
Well, it could have been, and quite honestly, even into the old airport, it's the go-arounds that were probably the most dangerous and taxing part of these. You fly the arrivals and departures fairly commonly. This guy, of course, made a mess of a departure, which is a concern. Those departures are designed to track over the water in between the high ground, and of course, the big, very taxing thing about Hong Kong is the fact that there's a great deal of high ground around. So you've got to follow the departure quite accurately. And if you've got a terrain system built in your aircraft, I'm assuming the 747 at this variant, which one was it? 748?
800,
yeah, you'd have think it would have had a terrain display, and I can't imagine a crew getting airborne without the terrain display on at least one side. It's more or less compulsory out of it. You'd be stupid not to have the display up on one side. Usually the pilot flying has it up, and the pilot monitoring might have radar up just to try and pick up any thunderstorms around. So you would be turning towards an area that's glaring red at you, indicating that it's extremely dangerous terrain. So I'm not quite sure what the crew thought they were doing. That just sounds mad. So
in the preliminary report, it says at approximately 2,000 feet, the enhanced ground proximity warning system, the EGPWS, on board the aircraft was triggered with a mode to a visual and oral warning: terrain, pull up, enunciated. In response, the pilot flying reacted, and the aircraft turned left away from the high ground. The aircraft evaded the high ground by approximately 670 feet.
Yeah,
and they subsequently,
not a lot. But I mean, care in preparing your departure, reading the briefing notes, looking at the departure, checking out the terrain should set you up for this. So I'm not quite sure what the crew were thinking of when they flew this, but there you go. Yeah. Plenty of other dangerous places in the world to operate. Just Hong Kong just happened to be one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, a little joke about fragrance refers to the fact that in English, Hong Kong means fragrant harbor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Interesting. Learn something new for the day.
There you go. Fragrant harbor, or possibly spicy harbor, or spice harbor from its original days. That's just sort of literal translation of the Cantonese.
I see. I was just assuming he meant smog or something like that. I guess maybe that's what they call the fragrance.
No, it's very much an in-joke, particularly with the old airport when you landed at Fragrant Harbour, because there was a huge drainage ditch down the side of the runway that was full of sewage. And as soon as you landed, the pressurization dumps and the ram air vents open. The first thing you got in the entire aircraft was this appalling stench of human waste. And, everyone used to grin at each other, especially the old China hands, and go, "Welcome to Hong Kong."
So, folks, listening to the show.
There is a joke about Bob Hope was on in the cockpit on one of these aircraft. I think it was a BA-74 landing. And the captain leaned across and said, "Oh, I do apologize for the smell, Mr. Hope. It's human excrement." And Bob Hope is reported to have said, "Yes, I know what it is, son, but what the hell have they done to it?"
It went through a fermentation process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my,
absolutely.
So hey, all that information, that factual information that you show, you're welcome, free of charge.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's an interesting one, I thought, from Ralph. He writes, "Congratulations on a terrific podcast. I've been listening for a few months now, and I'm hooked. I definitely have the APG syndrome." APG syndrome. We're terribly sorry to hear that. I started from episode 1 and enjoying every minute, learning lots of things. I've been a plane spotter for over 40 years and an aviation enthusiast for an even longer time. My first flight was on an Aer Lingus Vickers Viscount in 1964. I have a few questions at this time, and more to come, and listen to more. Don't CRJs, Canadian regional jets, have evacuation slides? A recent crash report alluded to that. How do they evacuate? Okay, so we'll take that one first. And we have an expert on the panel who has experience. Well, at least we have somebody who has experience on the panel here. Dana, Captain Dana here. You used to fly the CRJ, did you not?
I sure did. And no, there are no slides on the RJ. The forward door, which is the primary door that you enter into, has built-in stairs into it, so they're permanently attached to the forward door. And then the overwing exits, of course, you slide off the wing and you're right onto the ground. It's very maybe 4.5 feet off the ground from the back of the wing. So I don't know for any over water operators that use the aircraft. I'm not sure. I'm sure they have to have some type of flotation device, maybe in the overhead special compartment up there. But the aircraft that I flew domestically, we did not have any type of slides for evacuation because it wasn't necessary. We're not that far off the ground.
So when I was doing the research on this question that Ralph had regarding that, I thought, well, that can't be right. And then I started doing I found out that the 700 and 900 version of the CRJs, if you ever seen them on an airport, and you'll notice that they are kind of leaning on the ground, they kind of lean down or they pitch down a little bit, so they're higher up in the ladder part of the airplane and kind of pointed down in the front. And so, someone was saying on one of these forums, and I think that it's been confirmed by another person I was talking to today, that the Bombardier actually designed them that way to keep the door height below a certain height so that they could get away with not having to figure out how to put slides and that kind of thing in those doors.
Yeah, and so, I never flew the 700, 900, so that actually does sound logical. I don't know if it's true, but both the 7 and 900 both have internal stairs built into the door, just like the 50, the CRJ 200, which is the 50-seater, has the built-in stairs. So that's actually probably I can never figure out why they were tilted down like that. They just look really kind of cool and bad, but I'm not going to use the other word.
Boss.
Bass. Bad bass.
We got it.
Just take the B out there, right? So, it really, if you look at 700, 900, they look really kind of cool. So, but yeah, that makes sense because both the 700 and 900 both have integral steers built into them. So yeah, that would avoid the extra weight, and that would be a huge consideration for a regional jet, the weight. Especially, I don't know if people remember the crash in Charlotte with the 1900 that was taking off. They had a weight issue, as the FAA and the NTSB in the investigation found out. And shortly after that, on the regional jet side, and I think for also the main line, but it wasn't as big of an issue, they changed passenger weights, the average weight in which, passenger is supposed to weigh by the FAA's definition. Yeah, they took it up, and it really, especially on the 50-seat aircraft, it really, really hurt the ability to carry 50 people, bags, and fuel. We were leaving people, fuel, or bags, and if the weather was down, obviously, you would leave the people or the bags behind, not the fuel. So it was a huge deal, and so weight is critical on those smaller aircraft, on any aircraft. I mean, but it's far more critical on the RJs. So that's why it's very important they leave those slides off.
Okay, interesting. Here's his next. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, if I can get a certain person on a text here, I might have an answer for us in a few minutes. So continue.
Okay. All right. The next question that Ralph has is, do you write down ATC instructions as they are told to you, or do you keep it all in your head? With everything else going on, it would seem to be easy to transpose numbers, etc. Do you need to keep a record of all the instruction given to you for a particular flight? So I think we could all probably answer this one. Captain Nick, do you write it down? Or Steph, do you write it down, or what do you do? What's your technique?
It depends. So if I'm in an area that I know well and I'm familiar with the frequencies and the airfield and the directions I'm going to be given, sometimes I don't write it down because I'm familiar enough that I'm not going to forget that. If I'm going somewhere that I'm not familiar with, I tend to write things down because it is really easy. As soon as you start to read it back, you get 3 digits into, a couple more digits of a frequency, and you go, what was that again? Was that a 2.5 or a 7.5 or, so I just think it's easier to write it down if I am ready to do so when I'm given an instruction. Sometimes it happens maybe a little bit before you're expecting it, or you'll get an instruction you weren't expecting. And in those cases, they don't get written down. But if I have any questions, I'll just ask for clarification again.
Okay.
And in our airplane, I tend to, if it's something to be done immediately, altitude change, heading change, I'll just dial it straight into the flight control unit, the FCU, and goes in as soon as the guy more or less says it. If it's a radio frequency, I'm dialing it up in the second window of our frequency change box as the guy's talking. And if it's something to be done in the future, so like next time over the Ockham hold, leave heading 090 and 220 knots, because you're not going to do it like perhaps for 3 or 4 minutes, I will type it in the scratch pad, which is the bottom line of our McDo, our flight control computers, where you normally enter data. You can just type it in, and it appears in the scratch pad, and you can delete it afterwards if you're not going to enter it in anywhere. You're just using it as a reminder, and I just type it in there. So there you go.
I think that many of the co-pilots that I fly with, and I think it's something that they teach us in training, or at least the folks that are new to the fleet, to use the scratch pad on the FMS to type in, especially complicated taxi instructions, that sort of thing. Some of us just do it the old-fashioned way and have like a little piece of paper on the yoke, and we just jot down things. Or some of us have just an amazing brain and memory that they can it's just like you can remember everything that people have told you. It's not me, by the way.
like you owe me $25. Yeah, I can usually remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that. What do you think, Dana? Same thing? You a scratch pad? Are you a scratch padder?
Yeah, just jotting things down helps me remember things a whole lot better. of course, right in front of me, I have my scratch pad. I have paper and pen. That's usually the handiest thing that I do. Computer wise, sometimes I go over to the FMS and use that, but anything that I can jot something down on that I need to, as far as any instructions, is always helpful, because I suffer from this thing called CRS.
You don't need to explain that in detail.
Stuff.
Can't remember stuff.
Yeah, it's a family show, right? So stuff. Can't remember stuff. So, and by the way, I do have an answer to that last question.
Okay, what's the answer?
The answer is that the aircraft sat too low to the ground, so it's the length of the aircraft that made it a significant risk of tail strike if the aircraft sat any lower. So they lowered the front nose section to make sure that the aircraft would clear in the back and not strike the tail.
Oh, really? So it has nothing to do with the evacuation slide.
It has nothing to do with the evacuation slide. There's your answer. It's because the aircraft length had to be significant, is significantly longer than the 200, and it was too low to the ground, so they had to adjust it to not strike the tail.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. He continues.
And that's from my buddy who is an instructor on the airplane. He's been on the airplane for 17 years, something like that. 16 years, however long it's been around. So he's pretty credible.
Okay.
So there you go.
Incredible.
He is incredible.
Okay. Does the higher pitch angle of the L-1011 versus other aircraft play a role in the angle of attack at landing? And I can answer that because I flew the L-1011. It says other aircraft as well, so I guess we can all pitch in on this one. Does it play a role in the angle of attack at landing? Well, I can tell you, I think what you mean is because it's a very pitch high kind of an airplane, will you still have a high pitch angle coming in for landing, or high deck angle, DECK? Yes, you'll note that you still see the L-1011s, the MD-11s and MD-10s flying around at FedEx. And you'll note that compared to other airplanes coming in for landings places, that those airplanes will be more nose high when they're coming in. And that's just because they were designed that way to kind of have a higher pitch angle. And of course, because you have to increase your angle of attack coming in because you're flying more slowly, et cetera, that it looks like it's really way up there, the nose. I don't know else to answer that. But.
Well, and that's something I think as soon as I say it, you're going to remember it. Direct lift is a very unique thing to the L-1011. And where I remember really learning about that, and if you ever have the opportunity to go there, is the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. They have an entire exhibit on just that fact. It's part of the reason why the deck angle on the L-1011, it was a unique direct lift system, and that is you use the spoilers and the ailerons effectively to control the roll in the aircraft. And I can't remember all the specifics on it, but it has something to do with it.
Well, what it is a direct lift control, and basically on a normal airplane, like almost every other airplane out there, when you want to increase or decrease your rate of descent as you're coming in on a glide path, you lower the nose to increase your rate of descent, you raise the nose to decrease your rate of descent. And so the pitch actually changes. Well, on the L-1011, when you were in the landing flap setting with the gear down and all that, you're in the landing configuration, the direct lift control system would come into play, and the spoilers would reset to a neutral position of 7 degrees, I believe 6 or 7 degrees extended. And then when you made an adjustment to your glide path, if you wanted to increase your glide path, you push forward on the yoke, but the pitch didn't really move. And you just dropped, the spoilers would come out a little bit more, and you just drop a little bit faster. So you're like on an elevator. And same, the opposite is true as well. If you wanted to decrease your rate of descent, you would just pull back a little bit on the stick, and then the spoiler handle would move forward to the closed position, and the spoilers would kind of go to the faired position. And you would, so basically the whole idea was to keep the pitch angle constant, not necessarily to make it higher or lower, but to actually keep it constant all the way down and make adjustments on the glide path based on using the control surfaces. And it was all automatic.
See, wasn't that excellent?
Yeah.
I jogged your memory on it a little bit.
Oh yeah, I remember that was one of the weirdest things when I was learning how to fly that airplane, getting used to that direct lift control system, because at first, especially in the simulator, of course, even, almost every airplane you're in the simulator and you feel like you're flying a big rubber band. But when you were in the landing configuration in the simulator trying to fly an ILS and you were trying to kind of get used to that direct lift control, it was like your brain had trouble syncing up with it. And then the other odd thing about it for me is that every time we were in that landing configuration, I'd noticed this big old giant spoiler handle actually come out from the stowed position, and it's actually moving around, and it's kind of reacting in the opposite way that your yoke is being moved. And it's just weird. It's just like, what is going on here? It's just, but after you do it for a while, finally your brain kind of compensates for everything and gets used to and you're all synced up. But it's an interesting system. Just like, those moving sidewalks, we have them at the Atlanta International Airport. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I've been using those moving sidewalks for so many years that when you actually walk on one of those moving sidewalks and it's actually not moving, and you're telling yourself, okay, don't make any kind of compensation because they're not moving.
It's like a broken escalator. They're just stairs, but it's, for some reason, it really messes with your mind.
Yeah, same thing. You act like you're maybe 90 years old going up and down the stairs when the escalator's not moving because your brain is already compensating for the motion. Yeah, it's weird.
The one that the moving sidewalk that actually freaks me completely out is the one in Memphis. Have you ever been on that one?
Memphis. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you step on it, it's like
Elvis on it.
No, it's like walking onto a springboard. It's a rubberized moving walkway. And as soon as you step on it, it's like it's pushing right back at you. It's like almost like jumping onto a trampoline. So every time you take a step, it's really weird, and it just, I don't know what it is, but it's just really it freaks me out.
It just puts a spring in your step. That's all.
It sure does. I feel like a kangaroo.
Okay, finally moving on. Last question that Ralph has. Does VFR apply only to daytime flight? Do you need to land by sunset? And what is the difference between IMC and IFR? So in the notes here, I put VMC, VFR, IMC, IFR. What's the difference here? I don't understand all of this. And who would like to take a crack at that one?
Staff.
Okay. So if we're just talking about the different acronyms that you've listed there. So Jeff put in VMC, VFR, IMC, IFR. VMC and IMC refer to the meteorological conditions that you're up and flying in. So VFR is the visual flight rules that you would use if you're flying in visual meteorological conditions if you are not on an IFR flight plan. So I've made that exceptionally confusing. So let me back up for just a second.
Glad you took a crack at this one first.
I know, right? I'm just digging a bigger hole than so VMC, that's a category of flight, like I said, the meteorological conditions where you can perform a flight under visual flight rules, meaning basically that you can see and avoid other things. So the weather has to be good enough for you to be able to do that. Typically here in the US, you're talking about 3 statute miles of visibility. I'm talking about remaining clear of clouds it depends on what class of airspace you're in, but I'm not going to get into that too much. But generally, oh my gosh,
500 below.
500 below, 1,000 above, and 2,000 horizontal.
Vertical, yep.
I had to just make sure I had that straight in my head. And if it's less than that, then generally that's instrument meteorological conditions, and in which case you need to be have a instrument certificate to be able to fly in all of that, and that goes into a whole different category of training. But to come back to your first question, you said you need to land by sunset if you're flying VFR. Here in the United States, you do not. That differs in other countries. You would need to be night current to carry passengers here in the US, which means that you have to do 3 takeoffs and landings every 90 days at night. So after, how they define it. It's after sunset, but it's after
civil twilight.
Civil twilight. Thank you. It's the words I was looking for.
I'm just here to help.
Yeah. Just help me along there. So all of that's published. You can find all of that data.
I was the one that put you on the spot, by the way.
Yeah, I know you were. So
that's why I'm here to help.
I'll find my words eventually. So let me make sure I sum that up and make sure it's clear as mud. So VFR flying is visual flight rules. In basic terms, conditions where you can see and avoid other aircraft, that you can fly with visual reference to the ground. It's here in the United States, but like I said, differs in other countries. You do not need a separate license or rating or anything along those lines to fly at nighttime. Night training is part of your private pilot certificate here in the United States, and you can land at night as long as you are current. So 3 takeoffs and landings after civil twilight within the last 90 days in order to be able to carry passengers to do that at night. So at any time, I should state, you can go out and become night current again if it's just you in the aircraft solo. You can do 3 takeoffs and landings at night to make yourself current again. So, and then the difference between, it's kind of semantics, but IMC and IFR. IMC is just those instrument meteorological conditions. A lot of times refer, just general terms, again, flying without reference to ground, being in the clouds. But you need to be on an instrument flight plan, flying with instrument flight rules to be able to do that. So,
and in contact with air traffic control.
Exactly.
So
it's easy to sum it up. It's VMC and IMC is just the meteorological conditions, what you said, and then the VFR and IFR are just the rules in which you have to abide by and to fly in those conditions.
And interestingly enough, or maybe it's not interesting, but 99.9999% of the time, air carriers are operating under instrument flight rules, IFR, even if it's clear in a million, and you could, definitely be using visual flight rules. We are required as Part 121 operators to operate under instrument flight rules.
Well, if you're going to be in Class A airspace, you have to be on an IFR flight plan anyway.
Yeah,
and that's flight level 10 and above.
Correct.
I can't actually remember the last time I flew a VFR flight. I mean, it was over 20-something years ago.
You flew it into JFK? Probably.
You're
clear for the visual approach, so that's...
I was an IFR, it's done on an IFR plan. It's not a,
it's still
not a
IFR
VFR visual approach, is it? It's still an instrument approach. Anyway, I flew an ILS.
Yeah, but no, that's a good point. A lot of people think that when you're flying an airliner and you get cleared for a visual approach, that you're flying under visual flight rules, and you're not. You're still on an IFR flight plan, but you have to maintain VFR cloud clearance criteria. So it gets confusing. It really does. So
and one that we don't, and one that's is common out in GA that a lot of people may know about. But we never use in the airline world officially is a contact approach, and that's we have the preceding aircraft in front of you and call them. They always ask us, do you have the aircraft in front of you in sight? And we obviously say yes and no, and usually more times than not, because we're more times than not flying in instrument on an instrument flight plan, but in visual conditions. We say, yeah, we have the aircraft in sight. If it goes to the point where the visibility goes down to 2 or 3 miles, you can actually fly what's called the contact approach, and that's following the preceding aircraft in front of you, and that's still considered still an IFR flight plan. However, you're now in a visual environment. But we don't.
That is, as we don't normally do that, but there are occasions where I've actually been cleared. They don't say clear to contact, but they don't use that terminology, but that's exactly what we're doing. If you can't see the runway or the airport, but you can see the preceding aircraft, and you will most likely be able to see the airport and environment. When you get a little bit closer, they'll clear you the visual approach. They say cleared the visual approach, just by sole reference to the airplane that's preceding you.
Yeah, and
so I guess it's sort of like a contact approach.
Yeah, air traffic control actually can never clear you for a contact approach. You have to actually request it yourself as a pilot.
Wow.
So, but we basically, as you said, Jeff, we basically do that all the time, without it officially being said that way. So,
right. All right, cool. Well, I hope that vegetable soup or alphabet soup, I should say, but I must be hungry. The alphabet soup that we just threw at you and all the rules and conditions and everything didn't confuse you more than before you asked this question, Ralph. But those of you listening, again, we hope we didn't confuse you too much. But
I think Steph did a fantastic job.
Yeah, she did.
She did an excellent job. So,
well, and I will say this too, because rules do vary in different countries, and what I'm referring to is here in the U.S. So
yeah,
because there have been a couple comments in the chat room about VFR on top, and that was not Ralph's question. I'm not going to get into that at the moment.
Yeah, so that's what I was. Specifics. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing because somebody said, I think it was Dana, with visual reference to the ground, and I'm thinking, well, not always. You could actually get a VFR on top clearance where the clouds are below you and you can't see the ground, but you're still technically VFR, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, and like I said, varies from country to country. So, if you're a pilot in whatever country you're in, you should know the rules and regulations that apply to you to operate in that country.
And just a note on, I just want to add a little something on VFR on top. From a flight instructor's perspective, my perspective, if you're not an instrument pilot, you shouldn't be doing VFR on top. And the only reason why I say that is because if you get to your destination wherever you're going, your VFR on top, that's all fine and dandy. Well, what happens if you can't get down through the clouds, and now all of a sudden you have a fuel situation, et cetera, it can domino real quick. So it's not recommended. Even if the forecast says, take off out of here, you can probably pop through a few holes and get on top and be VFR, and when you get to your destination, it's clear in a million. That's not always the case. One night in particular, I remember coming back VFR from middle Georgia up into the Atlanta area. Forecast is clear in a million. Come into Peachtree DeKalb Airport in a single engine 182 and shot the approach to minimums and had to go miss because it went to a quarter mile in fog within minutes. And that was on a CAVU clear visual, clear and unrestricted visibility night, and barely made it into Fulton County before the fog rolled in there on an ILS right down to minimum. So, it's VFR is really should be used on very, very, very clear days, and or stay away from clouds and flying on top of clouds. I would never do that VFR.
All you have to do, Dana, is just look for an airport there above the clouds.
Yeah, you can find it. Yep, Dudding. It's kind of like Star Wars. They had the one of them. They had that floating city above the clouds when when Han Solo went to see his buddy. If you can find one of those, might be a multi-trillionaire.
Absolutely. So, hey, we didn't cover this in the news when it occurred. Probably should have, but we didn't. There was an Air Asia flight that had to return to Perth, Australia, after a mid-air scare, according to the headline. This was sent in by both Glen from Wellington, New Zealand, and from Louisiana, Steve, and they were both asking us to comment on this story. Glenn says, I saw this on the BBC today, an interesting flight with a lot of panicking passengers. I'm also certain that the cabin attendants weren't in tears and screaming, and it is just a couple of passengers. And Louisiana Steve wrote, please see the attached article from CNN. Okay, so we have one from BBC and CNN. I wonder when the public start calling for robot flight attendants to fly on their pilotless aircraft. I can't help but wonder how true this article is. And then he references this this incident that apparently this Air Asia flight, an Airbus A320 carrying 151 people, lost pressurization, and they had to make an emergency descent. And we practice these a lot in the simulator, because it's very, very important for us to maintain consciousness by getting into air that's thicker and has more, the partial pressure of oxygen is higher. And in the meantime, what do? Well, we start sucking on oxygen. And that's why the jungle of oxygen masks drop in the back of the airplane, and you put them over your mouth. It has nothing to do with smoke and fire. It has everything to do with oxygen. And you need to put those on and start breathing that so you can maintain consciousness. And of course, we have a little bit better mask up in the cockpit because it's more important for us to really maintain consciousness and awareness of what we're doing. And the news articles were saying that passengers were complaining that the AirAsia cabin attendants were yelling directions to the passengers to stay seated, to keep down, to breathe through the oxygen masks. And guess what? That's what they're trained to do. They're supposed to be doing that. Fortunately, most of us don't get into these situations, don't get to experience them. But when it happens, yeah, it can be upsetting when the flight. Now, maybe these flight attendants were a little bit too exuberant with their yelling and screaming, and perhaps they did look like they were startled and afraid. But and maybe they were. But I think that they were making more of this than they should have. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely, Jeff. I mean, we've had this problem before. I remember a evacuation on a runway at Gatwick, and they had it on a local talk show. Well, it wasn't actually local. It was, the BBC. And the commentator was saying that, oh, well, these girls obviously lost control. They were screaming at the passengers. Well, when you've got a young girl with a petite voice who's trying to make loud, strident commands, heads down, feet back, or instructing them and directing them to evacuate, they're going to sound a little bit squeaky. And, they're not screaming. They're shouting as loudly as they can. It may sometimes sound a little bit like screaming, but 99% out of 100, they're going to be just doing exactly what they're trained to do.
That's the way I figured it went down. Of course, interestingly, no video or audio of the alleged screaming
surfaced
flight attendants. Yeah.
Well, isn't it true though? In most situations, people tend to overhype and over exaggerate situations.
Mm-hmm.
People observe it. I mean, it's just in human nature. Just look at unless there's video. I mean, the whole situation with that gentleman being dragged off the airplane, we don't know what happened before that. And what happened is that now we have the video, but imagine if that was being described by somebody in sitting in the seat versus having the video. They probably would saying they were beating the guy, they throwing him all over the airplane, and you could go on, and they were yelling at him and blah blah blah. So if you don't have a video or audio of it, people are going to over sensationalize it, I think.
Yeah, well, I think in any situation that's stressful to someone, and that's different for everyone, people tend to remember things. It's not like your mind is taking a objective video recording or audio recording of things as they happen. Your emotions, your adrenaline tend to have an effect on your perception and how you remember these events. So if it is stressful, you're going to remember it as being perhaps more stressful than it actually was. So that's my
very
thought.
good point.
I thought of you today, Dr. Steph, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had the PA. Is there any medical personnel on the aircraft today?
Uh-oh. Well, I don't know if did you hear last week's episode? Did you listen?
Oh,
to
yeah,
it?
I listened to
okay.
it. Okay. I listened to it. Yeah, the three of you with the emergency doctor. I'm not going to be emergency room doctor. So, but anyways, yes.
Well, hopefully, good outcome, whatever it was.
Yeah, we didn't have to divert, so that was shortly after takeoff. I imagine it was okay.
Good.
Oh, good. Happy ending.
Always, hopefully.
And Glen from New Zealand also wrote us this. Thought you might like this article and the shocking customer service from what used to be the world's favorite airline. Of course, that's Glen talking. And this is from BBC.com. news. British Airways apologizes for bedbugs on Canada flight. British Airways has apologized to a Canadian family after they were bitten by bedbugs on an overnight flight. Heather, last name starts with an S that I cannot pronounce, was flying from Vancouver to London with her 8-year-old daughter and fiance earlier this month. After spotting the bugs, Ms. S complained to the flight attendant but was told she could not change seats. She said she and her daughter woke up the next morning covered in bug bites. British Airways offered an apology to the family. We've been in touch with our customer to apologize and investigate further, an airline representative said in a statement. British Airways operates more than 280,000 flights every year, and reports of bed bugs on board are extremely rare. Nevertheless, we are vigilant and continually monitor our aircraft. Anyways, this lady said she had alerted the flight attendant, was told nothing could be done. She was like, oh, okay, sorry about that. We're sold out. We don't have anywhere to move you. And once they landed, Ms. S said she and her daughter were covered in bug bites. So anyway, yeah, bed bugs, not a good thing to have on the airplane, but if there are no seats to move you to, I'm not sure exactly what it is that they were supposed to do. Do you have any ideas, Captain Nick? I mean, I'm sure bed bugs happen all the time on your airline, right?
Oh,
Wow.
That's a little bit unfair.
Kidding, of course. I would think that it would be far from that, actually.
Well, I think every airline suffers from the rare but occasional infestation of some kind of bug. Mice are often a problem. You get containers in from all sorts of sources, both into the cargo hold and into the cabin, and you get people bringing all sorts of things on. It's continual flow whenever you've landed of bits and pieces coming on. You do go to some exotic locations where there are various insect and other types of problem. And if any vermin or insects, biting insects, any kind of insects really are reported on the airplane, it's usually dealt with pretty efficiently. We can fumigate the aircraft, do the entire aircraft as a last resort, even if a zone is sprayed and treated, then it doesn't remove the problem, then we can usually get at it. So yeah, it's very unfortunate when it happens. If you have to be the unfortunate person that has spotted the first occurrence of it, then yeah, that's pretty terrible. And if there's nowhere to move you to, that's really unfortunate. What are you going to do? There's no alternative. Are you going to divert the airplane because of insect bites? Probably not. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. And I'm afraid that's part of life. You can go into a really nice class hotel and you might be unlucky and end up getting into a bed that's not perfect, and you might get bitten. It happens everywhere, and there's not a lot you can do. It's not very nice, but that's life.
Yeah. I'm sure, what were they thinking, that they would just be allowed to stand up for the remainder of the flight and for landing? That doesn't make sense, but I guess there's no spray bottle or whatever of any kind of a pest. What do you call it?
No, I don't think the bed bugs would have an oxygen mask, so you could probably depressurize the airplane at 35,000 feet.
That's
great.
What a good idea. We do actually carry sprays for certain destinations. We always used to spray in and out of Australia. We always spray in and out of the Caribbean, and that's just local health and agricultural, sometimes restrictions, so you don't carry bugs into an island nation that doesn't have them, and doesn't want to have anything new or strange there. So sometimes you get some of those bottles kicking around the airplane. You could use that, but generally speaking, no. It's such a rare thing. I mean, mice are the worst because they seem to have a real affinity to electrical cabling. So if you see a mouse on board, that airplane's usually grounded, and preferably until they can find the dead mouse after they've put poison everywhere. I mean, I got on an airplane the other day, and there was a warning for the cabin crew that there were cockroach bait traps out at the back of the. Yeah. So I mean,
did the plane come to South Carolina? because here we just call them the palmetto bug.
You can confuse the cockroaches with mice in South Carolina.
Really?
Terrible.
I think if you go to Texas, you can confuse them with a horse.
With a horse.
Yeah, well, I've been bitten by a mosquito they used to call the Hexham Grey, which was the size of a horse. If you get bitten by more than 6 of them, they could carry you away.
Wow.
Peter Pan.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's just part of life, and it's not a very nice part of life. It's the kind of seedier, things we'd rather not know about part of life.
Yeah.
I can see the passenger's point, though. I mean, how's the passenger? I mean, the bed bug issue aside, obviously, it's not much that can be done at that point. But the passenger doesn't know that the aircraft's sold out, so maybe they don't understand that.
Well, that's down to the cabin crew. Yeah,
the cabin crew did explain it, though. She said that was her answer. We're sold out. We don't have anywhere for you to move.
Yeah,
and understood. I mean, but in that situation, she may have not heard and understood that the aircraft's sold out. She just wanted to get the H out of that seat, that HEL out of that seat. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure that British Airways compensated them appropriately for
I'm
this.
sure. We are all not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect airline out there.
Yeah. Stuff happens, right?
That's right.
Stuff.
Yes, stuff does. Andreas, the third. Hello, Captain Jeff and crew. My name is Andreas, and I'm living in the northern part of Sweden in a town called Östersund. Yes, I know how you love the letters with the dots. Yeah, the Swedes and the Norwegians and the Danish love to put all kinds of really weird marks on their letters. Anyway, I think you called me, you can call me Andreas the Third, because I think I'm the third Andreas now giving you feedback from Sweden. I've been listening to your podcast from episode number 1 and have enjoyed every hour. He really stretches it out. I guess that's some kind of a pimp there. Sorry. When I started listening to APG, I wasn't a pilot, but after a while, when I had listened to the APG, let's see. When I had listened to the APG and a couple of other very nice aviation podcasts, I get very inspired. So I thought to myself, maybe I can be a pilot too. I've had a passion for aviation all my life. So I contacted my local flying club, and before I know it, I'm in ground school. I did my school exams, only 9, and when I passed them, I was qualified to do the written exams for the Swedish Transportation Agency. Only 9 more tests with 20 questions in each test. I finally passed them and started to fly in the spring of 2015. I took flying lessons in the summer of 2015 and 2016 and finally did my check ride on the last of August 2016, and I passed. Congratulations. All right. Okay, that's enough. All right, stop. Thank you. They're not listening to me. Darn them. They get a little obnoxious and a little punchy after we've been recording for a while. Okay, so he passed in August of 2016. I was 43 years old at the time, so I felt very proud of myself. So it's never too late to become a pilot. I did my training in the Diamond Star DA-40 TDI. I guess that's the diesel version.
Diesel, yeah.
And that's a very nice airplane. I think Dr. Steph tried it once.
A couple times, not the diesel version, but the DA-40. Yes.
Okay. Now to my question, and I think Captain Nick is the one who can answer this first question. Okay, Captain Nick, you ready?
I'll do my best, sir.
I've noticed on the Airbus 330 that there are some models called 330E, and I want to find out I found out that the E stands for enhanced. Can you explain the difference between the enhanced model and the classic? And do you have any of those enhanced models in your fleet?
Second part first. No, we don't. The first part second. The A330-300 enhanced was kind of increased weight version of the 330 that was brought out, I think, in about 2015. So they increased the maximum takeoff weight from our version, which is 233, up to by about 9 tons, up to 242. They put a centered tank into it, which ours doesn't have. That's sort of a belly tank that sits between the wings. It gave it an extra range. So it can go 242 tons up to about 6,100 nautical miles. And they tweaked a few things which just gave it a little bit of fuel efficiency. They reckon it's 2% more efficient. The enhanced versions were sent to Delta in May 2015, and Scandi got some, SAS, Scandinavian Airlines. That was the first European one to get. I mean, it wasn't a huge change. Those tanks and that weight had already existed in the 340-300. And the 330 is really just a twin-engine version of the 340-300. So, I mean, I think they had all the tanks and all the fuselages, and they just had to, match them up. And get the engine power right so that it could do it. I don't think it's got a center gear. I'm not absolutely certain. That was on the 340-300. We had a little 2-wheel center gear that helped take some of the weight that allowed us to increase it, but we went above 242. We went up to 257 tons with that. So that's probably when we needed the extra center gear. Just to carry that weight on landing and moving around on the ground. So that's it, really. I mean, it wasn't a huge change, and there I think bigger changes with others, but it was just given a little extra, I don't know, a top up on its performance and range and weight carrying capability.
I thought maybe the 330 was taking some kind of a pill. But apparently,
little blue one. I don't know. You have to take them very regularly if you want to keep enhanced for any length of time. And if your enhancement lasts longer than a certain period, then you have to
more than 4 hours. You have to go to the emergency room. Yeah.
I thought the only difference between the 330 and the 330 enhanced was just a couple of inches. But
well, there you go.
Wow, when you guys talk about me, huh?
I don't know where your mind is. I don't, there's nothing dirty about that.
No, nothing at all.
Yeah. He has another question here about single engine approaches. If you've been forced to shut one engine down and you're diverting to an airport with a lot of crosswind, if you have to, for example, if you have to shut down your right engine, do you prefer a right or left crosswind, or will it really matter? Can the wind help you in some way on approach and landing with just one engine?
Yes, it can.
Yeah, of course.
So
explain.
Well, of course, if you think about it, if you've only got one engine going, you're a twin-engine airplane, and they're out on the wings, it wouldn't be quite so bad for you guys on the Mad Dog. Your thrust is close to the center line. But when you put all that power on to, say, go around, and you've only got one engine, the aircraft will tend to yaw because you've got all the thrust coming on one wing. And it'll tend to, therefore, roll in the direction of the dead wing, the engine with the dead engine, the wing with the dead engine. So if you've got a crosswind coming on that side, it'll help lift that wing. So it'll make the aircraft just a bit easier to control on both the approach and if you do a go-around, if you've got a crosswind from that side. So if there is a choice, I guess, you would probably land with the crosswind into your dead wing. So yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. Having said that, most of the aircraft we operate are quite capable of operating with whatever crosswind is on limits. And although it's a good airmanship thing, it's not essential for the control of the aircraft. So you don't have to have it that way around. If it just happens that way, it can be advantageous. I've got that right, haven't I, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's better to have well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking more reversing, trying to stop the airplane.
Yeah, but in that case, the crosswind may not be that big of a deal once you're on the ground and you have the nose wheel down.
No.
But That's definitely a factor as well. And I think for most airplanes, if within a single engine situation, aren't the crosswind limits? Well, I guess they're not really officially reduced, but that's something that we do think about. It's best to try to land the airplane on a runway that has as little crosswind as possible.
Yeah.
And finally, he says, I want to push for the 200th show of the Plane Talking UK on the 20th of January next year. I think it's going to be a terrific show. I'm just holding my airline tickets in my hand, so I'm going to be there. I hope I will meet some members of this fantastic community in London as well. Bye for now, Andreas Norton. Excellent.
Hey, Andreas. I'll see you there, I think. Yay.
Well, I'm still waiting to see if I get the time off, but I'm going to make an appearance if I can. I'd be stupid not to. It'd be great fun.
And I'd like to go over there too if I can. It depends on my schedule and things happening in my life, but we'll see.
I'd like to go as well. That'd be fun to go.
All right.
All sounds quiet.
It does. Oh, Jeff
Jeff just disappeared.
Wow.
There was a very long pause there for a second,
and he's gone.
And then there was a puff of smoke, and Jeff did disappearing.
Oh,
he
joined.
There he goes.
Back.
Here he comes
Back again. Oh, yes.
Hello,
We missed him.
Captain Jeff.
Yeah.
And then
don't say anything more about him. Oh, he's
and
back.
then the bartender says, that's not a piano.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. Did you guys hear the first part of the joke?
Yeah, we got it. It's good. Carry on. Continue with the show.
Wait, was that the 9-inch pianist joke?
Yeah, maybe. I don't. Had something to do with a piano. Okay. Yeah, it's a great show. Great technology today. My hotspot
Didn't have anything to do with Ron Jeremy, did it?
I don't think he plays the piano.
He might be able to play it without his hands.
Okay.
This is feet. This is feet.
Dangerous.
Ahmad writes, hello, APG family. It's been a while since my last feedback. Here's my latest. When's Aloft info? How is it derived such that it appears in the nav display as an arrow direction with a number, speed? Is the aircraft able to measure wind, speed, direction for different altitudes or only for its current altitude? Or does the aircraft get a broadcast from the ground or nearby aircraft or nearby weather satellites overhead the wind, speed, direction so that it appears on the nav display? I'm working on an EFIS tool concept that allows wind info display to be managed by the crew, but I first need to understand how the current wind info system in current airplanes works. Thanks, and kavu to you all. So who would like to tackle this one?
Well, I kind of answered it by email, but we can do it in the show. It's great.
Okay.
So the answer is that you get wind direction on your display. It's comparison of, well, the aircraft knows where it's moving to, what direction and speed it's going, what height it is, from the aircraft instruments, but primarily from the inertial reference system. And it can compare where it's actually going with where the inertials say it's going. And the difference is obviously what the wind is doing to it. So if it has a speed of X and the inertial saying the speed is Y, then obviously the difference is perhaps a bit of headwind or something. So it can display that difference to us, and that's where we get wind, and it's an instantaneous inertial wind from the inertial reference system. So we get wind from other sources to help us predict our time at arrival, further ahead down our routing. We get that in the form of a forecast, which we feed into the computers, so it uses those winds to calculate where you're going to get in the future, and they are updated with your current wind as you motor along if the two aren't the same. And we can download those forecast winds on board the aircraft at regular intervals, usually about every 6 hours. We get them when we take off anyway, or before we take off when we're prepping. We get a set of winds then that is usually fairly current. And the reason they're usually pretty good and accurate is the fact that most aircraft, particularly flying over remote areas like the Atlantic or over the Pacific or whatever, and of course everywhere in the world really, download their individual winds at regular intervals down, and all that data is gathered and then assembled so that the aeronautical planners can get a genuine idea of what the winds at all the various altitudes of all the various aircraft is at that moment. And they can use those winds and then the pressure patterns that they build up through their forecast charts to predict what the wind's going to be in the next few hours. So that's kind of how it goes. We have an instantaneous readout in the aircraft, and we have forecasts which are built up partly from all the other aircraft around us and from the Met Man's knowledge of what will be happening in the near future.
Exactly. And that, those we sometimes refer to our auto-flight systems and our flight management system computer as magic, but it's not quite that magic. What we see displayed on our nav displays, the wind, arrow, direction and speed is strictly and exclusively just what the airplane is computing as far as, what the actual wind speed
it's
is.
just math.
We have a computer on the aircraft. It's PFM.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's kind of top secret, Dana. We're not supposed to talk about that.
Yeah, well, no, it's called a CADC on our aircraft. Essentially, a data computer which actually does all those calculations for us.
Right, but it doesn't.
I thought that was chemtrail air delivery computer.
Shh.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing on the show to take this stuff out.
So
what, PFM computer?
Yeah, well, we'll just let people use their imaginations on that one. It's fine. But
yeah, I didn't go into details. It's a PFM
some of
computer.
I was just going to add quickly in some of the more sophisticated GA aircraft with the different GPS systems that they have, and
the more sophisticated GA aircraft that have far more sophistication than the aircraft that Jeff and I fly.
Exactly. So then in those aircraft, basically the GPS is calculating your ground track, your ground speed. The aircraft knows your magnetic heading. It knows the outside air temperature, pressure, indicated airspeed, so it can get your true airspeed, and then it's just a math calculation from there to figure out your headwinds and tailwinds when you compare all those different ground speeds. So
just math. Yep.
Just math. Like you would do on your E6B, old school, pull it out and calculate. So
that's PFM is pure fun math. PFM.
There you go.
There you go. Excellent. Well, Ahmad, I hope thank you, Captain Nick, for answering him directly. I'm sure you went into a lot more detail, but thanks for answering his question live on the show.
No problem. We always try and do our best to answer everything.
This is a public service announcement for those kids that are listening to the show. Make sure that you go through school and take your time and learn your math, because that's very important. And a public service announcement.
Thank you very much. This is from Herk Guy Jack. Hi, guys. Herk Guy Jack from Japan. First-time feedback giver, short-time listener. Okay, I recently stumbled across, welcome, by the way, to the APG community. I recently stumbled across the APG podcast, and the hook has been set. I enjoy having the option of watching as well as listening. It's always interesting to listen to your show, and most recently had my family listening as we drove across southern Japan last week. It was interesting, the questions I had to answer afterwards. Thanks for taking the time to make it a very professional podcast for us all to enjoy. Oh, wait a minute. Does he think he's sending this to another podcast?
I don't know. Which show was that?
I don't know. I think you got the wrong address.
Anyway, yeah, we enjoyed doing it. Herk Guy Jack. Let's see. I'll admit that I have to have my work cut out catching up on past episodes. I've listened to about 10 now, so I need to find about 34,200 extra minutes somewhere in order to properly catch up. I assume out there eventually. Yeah, you will. Yeah, don't worry about it. So for my feedback, back in episode 290, you discussed a news article talking about how a certain European carrier, I think they were given the name Ryanair, had to cancel flights due to a pilot scheduling snafu. Well, it seems that the U.S. Air Force has a bit of a pilot shortage as well, and is now looking at recalling retired U.S. Air Force pilots to come back in to help out. And in fact, we covered that on the last show. I believe we talked about the fact that they could be recalling as many as 1,000 retired former fighter pilots. Yeah, we did do that. I don't know how this will affect those of us who are preparing to retire from the Air Force in, let's just say the next 9 months or so, but it is certainly interesting times. I wonder if you could discuss how the recall would affect U.S. airlines if it were to become a mandatory recall. I believe as of now, it is strictly voluntary. Is the UK having the same issues with its pilots, even with a longer service time? I don't know. Nick, are they doing the same kind of thing over there, or are they not really?
No. Don't worry about that. Our Air Force has shrunk to such minuscule proportions that we don't need many pilots. I mean, I think there's about 10 of them. I think that's all we need.
Okay.
No, I'm only joking. I mean, seriously though,
You only have one
our Air
airplane,
Force has shrunk considerably. No, I don't. We're not even as much as even a small airline now. So no, we don't have that problem.
Yeah. Not sure exactly how it's going to affect the U.S. airlines. Maybe each airline will be a fraction of that number. I don't know really. If it's going to be a mandatory recall and how it will affect the U.S. air carriers. I would imagine it's going to affect as the shortage does. On the regional airlines much more profoundly than the majors. But I really don't know. Any ideas or thoughts about that, either Steph or Dana? Okay.
No, I don't.
Sorry.
I don't.
Well, then I'm going to move on, and maybe somebody can send us some feedback and give us an idea of how they think it's going to affect. But I don't think it's going to be a huge effect, actually. Captain Jeff, I read that you were also a member of the 7,000-pound dog whistle driver club as well. I learned a lot in the tweet, the T-37 trainer, and it was a fun little plane to fly, except when it was hot or cold or, well, so those days, how sometimes the engine wouldn't light off until the lineman shook the wing. I don't remember that, actually. The coordination required to close the canopy, keep the nose wheel steering button engaged, and get off a quick radio call to the runway supervisory unit washed out more students than any spin ever did. Yeah, it was a lot of coordination required to do to close the canopy and keep the nose wheel steering button engaged and keep from taxiing off the taxiway. The silver key connected or disconnected call passing through 10,000 feet, and he's referring to the zero, what do they call it? Zero delay cord or lanyard or something like that. Basically, when you're below 10,000 feet, you attached on your parachute, you attached a zero delay thing so that there would be no delay when you were ejected for the parachute to start coming out, because you didn't have much altitude to work with. And above 10,000 feet, you could let the delay system become activated, and it gives you more time to get away from the ejection seat before the parachute is deployed. What is that thing called? Zero delay lanyard, maybe that's what we called it. I still remember all the boldface from that jet for some reason, and can recall the spin recovery procedure in my sleep. Yes, it's 43 words to be exact, and you had to get every single word exactly right to pass your check ride. And I'm not going to, I'll spare you all the actual spin recovery procedure. The term "don't buggy whip it" was commonly known to all who spun her. Yep. If your information or even touched 69% on the RPM, you were going to be left behind. Yeah. I think that was when the speed brake, the attenuators, thrust attenuators came out. So you didn't want to ever let the RPM get that far back. From idle to max power, the engines took 12 to 13 seconds to spool up. It would sometimes snow in the cockpit. Yeah, that's true. Sometimes our air conditioning system, trying to cool us down, would start spitting out. And I think we've all probably experienced that. And if you've been in an airplane, even as a passenger in an airliner, sometimes you experience snow in the back coming out of the air conditioning vents. Anyway, so he goes on, talks about a few other things that were memories of his flying the T-37. He continues, Captain Nick, is the RAF still flying the F-4, or have they all been retired?
All
Japanese
retired.
Self-Defense Force. Oh, okay. The Japanese Self-Defense Force here still operates them, and recently had one catch fire while at the Last Chance, or EOR, arm area. Again, not airline related, but this is a joint use airfield, as many of the smaller airfields are here in Japan. So he gives a link to that article about a Japanese fighter jet catching fire. Thanks again for your wonderful podcast. It's always nice to listen to it here in Japan. And yes, the sushi really is that good here. Right, Dr. Steph?
It really is.
I'm jealous.
And again.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm hungry.
Well, you know what? Maybe 2019 we'll do a meetup in Japan.
Ooh. I'd go back.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying that. And again, this is Herk Guy Jack. Sometimes I say things and then people go, they already start to work on getting hotels and everything. So I'm just kidding about Japan.
Don't run out there yet.
Yeah. Better chance going to Australia.
Yeah, I've never been as a civilian to Australia and spent any time there, really. That'd be nice. Okay. Well, thank you, Herk Guy Jack. Glad to have you a part of our community. I thought this was an interesting one from Big Ron. One, if you want to take this one and read it.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Remembering the Polish 767 that landed at Warsaw with no undercarriage, even though this sort of emergency is virtually unheard of with today's modern airliners, are you trained for such an event? And if not, how do you think you would handle it? Well, you'll always find out eventually because you haven't got an unlimited supply of fuel. So what would be your first thoughts on how to try to get the aircraft back on the ground with as little damage as possible and as safe as possible? I watched the investigation on the lot 767 and found it fascinating. Thanks for taking the time reading this not so big run. Cheers, guys and girls. Well, I don't know about you guys, but we've got quite a long checklist for gear that doesn't come down. It depends obviously what aircraft type, because for me the 330 has only got two main bogies and a nose wheel, whereas the 340 has got a center bogie as well. So it very much depends on which bogie won't come down. Or of course, if none of them come down, that's actually very simple. You're going to land it on the belly regardless. So if you can get some down, that's always an advantage because it's going to take some of the load and limit the amount of damage. If you've got, say, let's assume you've got a left main bogie that won't come down. Well, you're obviously going to reduce the weight of the aircraft, so there's less impact damage. You're going to reduce the amount of fuel so that there's less to burn in case you drift off and drift off the runway, a tank splits open, you end up with a fight on that to happen. You are going to pick an airfield that preferably has a crosswind, or a runway that preferably has a crosswind into the wing that has the damaged gear or the gear that won't come down. That'll help try and hold that wing up as long as possible in the rollout. You are going to land on the side of the runway with the good gear on that side, so you'll inch the aircraft over. Of course, in a big aircraft, you can't inch it over very far, but you can certainly bias towards the side of the runway that has the good gear, so that when you eventually drop that wing, obviously the drag of the engine pods hitting the ground are going to tend to pull the aircraft off the runway in that direction. If you've sidled up to the side of the runway, you've got a lot more runway to play with if the aircraft starts to slide away. Depending on the severity of the problem, we're going to obviously declare a mayday. We're going to get the runway radars. We're going to line it up long and a long way out. We're going to come in at a reasonably slow speed, but not too slow, because you need to be able to still have control, lots of control authority to put the aircraft on the ground nice and gentle. And if you try and bring it in ultra slow, you're not going to have that control authority. So we just basically land at normal speed or close to VLS. And then having put the aircraft down, we're probably not going to arm the spoilers if it's a main gear, so that we don't get wing lift dump onto that wing and it bangs into the runway. We don't want that, because obviously there's no gear to support it. So we're not going to use the spoilers. We're going to brake gently. We're going to try and hold that wing up as long as possible and keep the aircraft straight. This is why we pick a very long runway, so that we can do all these things and not risk running over the end. Eventually, though, as the speed drops, the wing that isn't supported by a gear is going to slide down onto the runway. And depending on your aircraft, of course, Jeff hasn't got the advantage of underwing pods on my aircraft. You're eventually going to settle a pod onto the ground. So by that time, you need to have those engines shut down so that you're going to cause as little damage as possible. And then you're eventually going to shut down the wings on the other wing, engine, sorry, on the other wing. So you're going to effectively going to be just a, bit of metal just sliding down the runway as you come towards a very low speed. And then once the aircraft's come to a halt, you're going to probably do an evacuation. So you need to have prepared the cabin. You need to have made sure everyone knows we're doing an emergency landing. You're going to get everyone in the brace position at 200 feet. And then once you're stationary on the ground, you're going to call for an evacuation. And then, of course, you do have to have a little think about which doors might be available for evacuation. If it's a center gear, wing gear, that's not too much of a problem. But if you lost the nose gear, for example, the back end of the airplane is going to be sticking way up, and the slides will probably be near vertical. So that's not an ideal door to evacuate people from. So you're probably going to want to get the cabin crew to make sure people don't try and slide out of that, unless for some reason that's the only way out of the aircraft. And you're going to use the forward exits. And all those sort of considerations are in quite a long drill. So hopefully when you end up with this situation, you've got a little bit of fuel to give you, say, half an hour of preparing the airplane, going through the drills, making sure you've done everything you can to get the gear down, and then eventually dealing with it. And that's about what I can do off the top of my head.
So clearly, Ron, we don't train for this at all.
Oh yeah, we do it quite regularly in the sim as well, and the sim's not bad at it actually. I've done a few main gear up landings. Yeah, it makes a slither off, and sometimes you end up in the grass, and it's and then you have to do the evacuation, blah blah blah. So yeah,
I'll have to say, I'm sorry, my bandwidth is getting really warbly here, so I'm sorry if I've talked over somebody. Go ahead, Steph. Were you saying something?
Oh no, I just sorry, I was looking up something else while Nick was talking. But Ron asked about, do they still foam the runway? Did you answer that part of the question?
No, they don't really. They found out that it doesn't really have that much effect. You can't foam enough of the runway for a big airplane anyway. It used to be done in the Air Force, mainly for fighters, and they can generally only foam a fairly narrow strip, and it's not very long. So for a big airplane, you're going to have a hard job stopping within it, or even getting the engines that are scraping on the ground to be within it. So it's a kind of pointless. I don't think there are the facilities in many places. I don't think there are any in the UK that I know of now that still use it. And there was always a great deal of doubt as to whether it was actually effective anyway, because the amount of heat generated from grinding aircraft, say engine pods along the runway at 100 knots, a layer of foam on the runway is not going to stop that. It's still going to spark, and it's still going to effectively set things alight. Much better to have the fire trucks at the right spot waiting to soak the airplane in foam at that point than it is to perhaps waste 10,000 feet of foam that's actually not going to even be there when you come to a halt. You're going to be somewhere completely different off the side of the runway.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's for our aircraft. I mean, we would just be sliding on the belly of the aircraft, so I don't think it would be, the thing that with a 7.6 or even any aircraft that has an underwing engine, like what was the number one concerns when they crashed in the Hudson was the worry of the engine grabbing and catching and flipping the airplane. So that would be my only comment. Is an aircraft like the 88. You don't have anything underneath really hanging down there to grab, which will make it a little bit safer, I think, in that situation to put the aircraft on the ground.
And honestly,
aren't you guys worried that a wing might dig in, though? I mean, is that a feasibility? I don't know how many aircraft, how many Mad Dogs have ever landed with the gear up.
No, I don't think any, but I mean, it's just, when you think about an aircraft that has the wings hanging off a nacelle off the bottom of a wing, that's something that can, grab and cartwheel the airplane.
It's going to tear off, to be fair. I mean, an airplane of 250 tons, it's the pylon's probably going to rip off. It's probably not going to spin the whole airplane round. So I mean, and they've been quite.
Well, but you know, there've been a couple instances where you touch a wingtip and the aircraft ends up cartwheeling. So it doesn't take a whole lot necessarily to possibly cause.
No, that wingtip was a big moment. Yeah, I mean, we don't know. There are lots of variables.
Of course, we don't. What was that aircraft that crashed right off the beach? I think it was a 757, 767. It ended up cartwheeling too. So you just don't know. It's certainly not. None of us here on this panel would ever like to try that out. That's for sure. And no one not even trained for it.
I know of a pilot who has. We had one on our company quite early on in the A340's life, and landed with the main gear stuck up, and it was an extremely successful landing. And they barely left the side of the runway, and there was no interest whatsoever, no major interest whatsoever on the aircraft. In fact, it was flying again in about 3 weeks.
I could tell you that in my experience at my airline, not a lot of emphasis is placed on various gear not working kind of scenarios, at least in our training in the simulators, at least not in my experience. They kind of let the checklist kind of go, lead you through everything and give you the different possibilities and what you should consider and everything else. But maybe that's just me. Anyway, that was a great question. Thank you, Ron, for giving it or sending it and asking it. And before we get too long in the tooth, which is kind of a odd thing or a ridiculous thing actually to say about this show because we're always long in the tooth. Let's make sure that we get in this week's installment, the third part of Nigel's interview regarding the 49ers. Here we go.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales, the 49ers Part 3. We continue our interview with Captain Nigel Demery, past president of the Hong Kong Aircrew Officers Association. The 49ers have been illegally fired from Cathay Pacific. We resume the final part of this interview to find out what became of them. What were the IFALPA policies that helped you out when you were taking industrial action?
The IFALPA Industrial Committee has got a load of protocols. For example, if, let's say, Virgin Atlantic goes on strike, well, the last thing you want is all the British Airways pilots taking all of the Virgin Atlantic customers, otherwise the strike's going to be broken for no money. So you have these written down procedures and protocols, and if you're the union taking action, you request IFALPA to institute which one of these protocols you want. One of them that we used was the recruitment ban, because obviously we'd had 50 guys fired, and we didn't want 50 new pilots walking through the door, because obviously Cathay just wanted to replace them and move on. So IFALPA put the recruitment ban in place for us, and I have to say, when you're trying to get into your dream airline, when you're trying to further your career, it's very tempting to go to this airline when there are new jobs going. So I take my hats off to the many, many young guys who observed the IFALPA recruitment ban and decided to wait before they went to Cathay or found another job.
What happened to the 49ers?
It's dire, Nick. It's dire. It's a long time ago, and we haven't got time to go into all the detail. We've got a website, the cathaypilotsunion.org, all one word, and there are a couple of newsletters on there that explain it all. But we had guys and their families, two families, physically evicted onto the streets with Cathay management kicking them out. One of them had already negotiated with his landlord to stay on, but no, they insisted that it was terminated. They made misrepresentation to the tax office about these 50 guys are all leaving, and they've all got to pay full tax. And these blokes were sent tax demands, like you couldn't get out of Hong Kong. You couldn't leave Hong Kong and go somewhere cheaper, like back home in England, for example, until you'd paid your tax bill. And these guys were given huge tax bills that were complete fabrication, worst case. People were given tax bills. Oh, I hear you're leaving Hong Kong. No, actually, I'm staying. Family's here. No, well, you still got to pay this tax bill because Cathay said you got to go. They wouldn't pay them the benefits that they were entitled to, or like shipping all your furniture back home. Like you've got to pay for your complete relocation back to England. I know we normally pay for it, but bad luck, you're a 49er. Cathay had a credit card scheme going with one of the banks. I can't remember which one. And the blokes went to a bit short of cash, get something on credit card. No, the credit card's been terminated. So there were a whole host of subsidiary intimidation and actually bloody rude. Very vindictive. It was nasty. It was evil. It was evil. So they didn't just fire them, give them 3 months. They held on to the 3 months pay, because you might have to pay tax bills and all that sort of thing. So the guys were, they were right at the beginning. They were in a really, really bad state. It was hard. It wasn't just, oh, you've lost your job. As you know, in the airlines, you could be a senior training captain today, but you leave the airline today and go to another one. You start off at the bottom of the rank of seniority and you're a first officer again. So huge problems for guys, huge problem.
Well, these guys just able to go and get other jobs with other airlines?
Funny old thing, there was a blacklist. Nobody ever admitted it. But, we had guys going to Emirates, there you go, another expat airline, qualified on 777, should be able to walk into a job, get through the interviews at all. And guys, if it was known throughout the industry that, because Tony Tyler and Philip Chen said it at the press conference on the 9th of July, that anyone who stopped working for Cathay on the 9th of July is a troublemaker. So there was a blacklist of, the guy's is a troublemaker. Of course, you take the bloke that's behind him in the queue. So the blokes found it incredibly hard to get jobs again. Certainly not in good, reputable airlines. People flew some shady freight jobs, the Hajj and things like that. But no, they were blacklisted. And Cathay was pretty good. The director of flight ops, Ken Barley, as he was then, he said, oh, well, write a letter saying that you were fired for no valid reason. You can give it to the next manager that's who's recruiting you. And when we got to the Court of Final Appeal in Hong Kong, I can't remember which of the 5 judges it was, he said, well, that's just a lie, isn't it?
Excellent. How was the situation eventually resolved?
Well, time. We went into hold the ground mode. Like, we didn't want to escalate. We didn't want to retreat. If you retreat, the 49ers were lost. So we just held the ground. It was a bit of a problem because the 9th of July was 10 weeks before 9/11. And I think all of your listeners will know how that affected the industry. And of course, our little, it was a big important thing to us, 49ers in Hong Kong, but in the macro world, our little dust up with Cathay Pacific Management paled into insignificance. So we basically went into 2 or 3 years of guerrilla tactics. Then I don't know whether your listeners will know, but then SARS came along in 2003. That was one of the flus, pandemic type things. So Hong Kong shut down. I mean, they shipped people, they isolated whole housing estates, and passed food through the door like you see in the movies, sort of thing. So SARS came in. That was huge effect on Hong Kong and obviously on Cathay. And nobody was flying to Hong Kong. You wouldn't go there. So they now needed. The airline now actually did need to survive, and the only way you can really survive is if your employees help you. So they came to us and said, look, we need some help in SARS. And at last, after 2 years of holding on, we were able to negotiate with them because, you want something, we want something. And so at last we were able to start talking with them again after 2 years. At that point, I felt I was pretty knackered by then. So I handed over to somebody whom I thought I could trust to succeed me. Mistake. And that someone was completely outmaneuvered by very wily and sharp Cathay management. And basically, he came to a deal that the 49ers didn't want, didn't put it to the membership per se. And the net result was, in the end, they came up with a, well, if we can pay you some money and go on your way. You can get we'll put you through an interview process for a job, but the main thing is that all legal assistance from the AOA will cease at that point. So if the AOA agrees to this, they have to stop funding the legals.
So you were conducting quite a large series of legal actions against the company on behalf of the 49ers.
Yeah, of course. We were after basically unfair dismissal in 4 jurisdictions: Australia, America, UK, and Hong Kong. And everyone knows that the wheels of law move remarkably slowly, but we were now progressing very expensively. So without the AOA funding, i.e. the rest of the union funding the legal cases to protect the contract, it was going to die dead in the water. And eventually, I'm afraid that's what happened. 19 guys, the legals, but they needed money. So at that point, because I was completely against this abandonment of the 49ers, I was one of 7 founder members of a new union. That's where you need to found a union in Hong Kong. We started the Cathay Pilots Union on the 1st of May 2005. And through that membership, we funded UK and Hong Kong.
Now, I know that was a long battle, but it culminated in a real victory. Can you describe that to us?
Well, first of all, we won in the UK, and John Warren and I went. It was great. We went to the House of Lords. It's now called the Supreme Court, but went to this fantastic building and went into the House of Lords, and it was fantastic. And we won that. And there was only one plaintiff left at this stage in the UK, Captain George Crofts. And he won, and basically he set profound employment law, which has had spin-offs later on. But yeah, so we won in the UK, and it took 11 years, but eventually we won in the Court of Final Appeal in Hong Kong, and that was very pleasurable. And basically, Cathay had broken the law, just as simple as that. They had broken the law. Union objectives say everything has to be lawful, which is sort of quite reasonable, really. You can't get around with baseball bats in this day and age. So we'd stuck to the law, but Cathay broke the law. And that was the bit that was wrong. And that's where they actually got the advantage, because we had to rely on the legal system then to dig us out of it. And we won in the end.
And that case set a precedent in employment law that affects almost every pilot now, whoever works on a basing, yes?
The UK decision, which was then, it didn't affect the Hong Kong case so much, but the UK decision basically affects all peripatetic employees. In other words, people who are on the move. And in this day and age of globalization, loads, hundreds, thousands, millions of people are probably on the move. Pilots obviously are clear. And what it's basically, the UK law is adopted by many countries, the common law system precedent. And once that precedent's been set, unless a later ruling that has other ramifications overturns it, it sticks. So actually only about 2 months ago, some buddies of mine won a case down in New Zealand based on George Cross' win 11 years earlier in England, and the Cathay was trying to kick him out at the age of 55, and the New Zealand Supreme Court has just ruled, no, you can't do that because they're based in New Zealand, and in New Zealand you're not allowed to fire somebody over the age of 55 or any age. There's age discrimination, which we don't have in Hong Kong, incidentally. But no, so those guys get another 10 years' work because Cathay Pilots Union funded the 49ers through to win in England.
That really was a magnificent victory. I know it didn't really do much for the 49ers looking back on it, but to have that kind of a victory in law that will protect other pilots in the future, I think is a great legacy.
Yeah, it's great. Actually, I'm very proud of that.
So how do you feel looking back on that period?
Well, I have to say that, time's a great opportunity to reconsider the decisions and actions you took at the time. There were losses on both sides, unnecessary losses, because it was actually about control. And actually, pilots are pretty reasonable. We wanted a reasonable roster. We wanted reasonable contractual and stick to the contract. We don't want it changing every day. But I mean, 3 people died. 2 of the 49ers died. One of them, his wife committed suicide in the garage, hung herself in the garage. There was huge stress. 51 careers were lost. Even 12 of the 19 guys that went back to work for Cathay, they never got the same contractual terms again. They were started on the freight, huge career losses, never got the same seniority. There are serious health issues, people with, in fact, George Cross, he had triple bypass surgery, a lot of stress going on. On the other side of the coin, Cathay lost at least half a year's profits. That amount of money for the dispute, huge disruption to thousands of our passengers, and of course, they've looked back on the system as well, and all of Cathay's generals at the time were moved out or sideways because it wasn't a success for Cathay Pacific Airways. It was supposed to be a quick, done and dirty, bust a strike, put the pilots on our contracts, we'll control them in future. And it went on for the longest industrial dispute in aviation history.
Wow. Any advice for the current pilots out there in Hong Kong?
Well, yeah, because it's happening again. It's a continual cycle. The trouble is, airlines need pilots, look at Ryanair, but managers don't always know how to run an airline. Look at perhaps Monarch. And you get this cycle of managers coming through who have only done on-the-job training. They haven't been trained. Pilots are trained before they're allowed to sit in a seat and fly passengers around. Managers come along, they get through the job interview, and then they learn basically by their mistakes. And it's a simple fact. If you're running a business, that profit equals revenue minus costs. It's that simple. And the demand is always more profit, more profit. So if you're not increasing the revenue, you've got to cut the costs. And so they just, what are our cost items? Staff are a cost item. You can't banter the price of oil. Oil is a fixed price on a daily basis, sort of thing. So we'll go for the cutting the costs of the staff. And so it's happening again now. Already they're introducing new contracts. They've just cancelled the housing benefit. They're changing the scheduling again. And it's right now, it's all a repeat of what was going on in 98 and 2001. One difference, I think, is that we have proved that if the Cathay pilots wish to take industrial action again, they are protected by law. If management were stupid enough to try and recreate a sequel, 49ers 2 sort of thing, they would be serving an injunction because the law has been tested completely that's illegal. But the pilots need to stick together and learn from what went on before, because if you're after a career, it's going to happen once or twice at least in your career.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Where might we find more details about the industrial action and the story?
Yeah, cathaypilotsunion.org. There's a little news section on the side, and there are 2 newsletters there that summarize everything that I've said, or in more detail, actually.
My thanks again to Nigel for telling this amazing story. And for more information, a book I can recommend is The 49ers, The True Story by John Warren, who was one of the 49ers and the chief negotiator for the Cathay Pilots Union. Music by bensounds.com. I've just had a message from Jeff asking me to wrap the show up. So I'm guessing.
No, I'm sorry. No, I don't mean to wrap up the show. I didn't say that correctly. I meant, could you like tie up in a bow the 3-part interview?
More.
Summarize.
Sum it up. Sum it up.
Okay, let's start that again.
In less than 30 words.
Exactly right. So thanks really to Nige Demery for giving us his time. He's a fascinating bloke. He's got a great story, and that story spread out over 3 plain tales, really sort of joins it all together. And he led his union, which was not a particularly aggressive union because they're not very well supported by employment law in Hong Kong. But he led them through what was an immensely long and vicious fight with their management. And you can tell just by how deeply affected Nigel has been by watching 51 guys have their careers ruined. There were deaths and suicides amongst those. And, the pilots union at the end of it came out with no great advantage. The company came out with no great advantage. And they probably lost several $100 million. The company did during the dispute, all in an effort to break the pilots union. Something that was really an awful thing to attempt and very unethical. The way they went about it. And it's so sad to see that cycle now apparently repeating itself. So I really can recommend that book by John Warren. You can find it on an ebook. And it's not expensive at all. And he has brought it up to date, I think, with the results of the court case in the what was then the House of Lords, the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, where they set this precedent for employment law that affects any based pilot who basically the law says when you're based somewhere, you come under the employment law of that country, not under Hong Kong's employment law. So you can't just go around and fire people willy-nilly. You've got to have true justification for it. And that's really what it came down to. But following those court cases took over a decade and an enormous amount of money, which Nigel and just a few other guys managed to generate by forming a separate union and funding these court cases individually. And I can tell you, when you've got to pay for a Queen's Counsel and you've got to pay to have legal representation in the Supreme Court, that is not a cheap thing.
Well, thank you for that wonderful summary. I've been tasked with moving on to something that I wanted to cover real quick from last week's episode. We answered a question about the use of cell phones in flight, and we received a email from Steve saying, well, you got some of it right, but you missed a whole big part of it, at least for here in the United States when it comes to the use of cell phones in flight. And I'm not going to read all of his email here because it's goes on for quite a bit, and I know we're running a little short on time, but basically he points to a federal agency here in the United States, the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, and under Title 47, Chapter 1, Subpart B, Part 22, Subpart H, Section 22.925, which may be why I didn't come across it in my searching to try and answer the question last week.
Rolls off the tongue there.
Yeah, just right off the tongue. The FCC definitely weighs in very concretely where the FAA does not regarding cell phones. And they say cellular telephones installed in or carried aboard airplanes, balloons, or any other type of aircraft must not be operated while such aircraft are airborne, i.e. not touching the ground. So when any aircraft leaves the ground, all cellular telephones on board that aircraft must be turned off. So there you have it. There is no ambiguity about that. And they actually do have the final say on that. And according to the regulation, failure to comply could result in suspension of service and or a fine. And Steve says he has no idea whether this has actually been enforced, but anyone operating or riding in an aircraft should be aware of this rule. So applies to passengers, pilots, and everyone. I'm going to summarize and skip a little bit of this, but he says he's starting to sound a little like the new curmudgeon. I'm not saying I like the rules. I'm just saying they're there, and I try to do my bit as a responsible citizen to comply with them. So thank you very much for that, Steve W. in Marietta. That does get a whole portion of what I missed last week on that, so I wanted to make sure I corrected that error, so there's no question about what's allowed here in the U.S. when it comes to cell phones on airplanes.
So to sum it up, bottom line is electronic devices on.
Yeah, exactly.
On. Wait a minute.
I think you know the position of our show here too, Steve.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it actually has to do with how cell phones connect with cell towers, and the concern is that if you're thousands of feet above ground, there's too many potential cell towers for it to connect with, and if you're moving at a high rate of speed, it can basically confuse and overwhelm the cell network. So,
and those towers will blow up.
Pretty much, yeah.
No, that'd be cool.
It has to do with something with redundancy of frequencies that I don't completely understand. I'm sure someone else can tell us about all of that, but the way cell phones actually, multiple cell phones can use the same signals to create calls and all of that, which I'm not explaining well at all right now, but it basically confuses the network, and the concern is that it will not only not work well for you, but other folks on the ground who are trying to use their cell phones at the same time.
Well, I'm confused, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that makes all of us, I think. Okay, well, thank you, Steve, for sending that in, and thank you for being part of the Coffee Fun Cadre. Again, we appreciate that. All right, well, that is going to be it for today's show. I have really no idea how long this thing is because we've had so many technical issues. Who knows for sure, but yeah. So if you want to learn more about the show, you can head over to airlinepilotguy.com, and there you'll learn about the crew and the community and the, let's see, very soon, I'm getting very close to launching the special Plain Tales page, and you can listen to all, I don't know how many hundreds of them you've done, Nick.
Oh yeah, it's looking great, by the way. I've been given a peek preview, and it works beautifully, and I'm sure it'll be fabulous.
Yeah, and you'll be able to subscribe. For those of you who are tech savvy, you can subscribe to a feed of just the Plain Tales, and then Nick will be probably adding some stuff to it as well. I'm just kind of creating the basic structure. Anyway, merchandise, how you can join the Coffee Fun Cadre, and more. Again, that's airlinepilotguy.com. And let's see, we also have some smartphone and mobile device apps for both the iOS and Android platforms. Information about how you can download yours for free, no advertising or anything. And you can find that information at the airlinepilotguy.com website or in the show notes, which again are on the website as well. And social media.
Sure thing. You can head over to Twitter, and you will find all of us together there at APG Crew, using that handle. Pinned at the top of the page, you can find our individual Twitter account information. You can go over to Facebook, facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. Join the community there. There's all kinds of interesting articles and topics for discussions posted. We do read through those and respond when we can. So definitely join us on social media.
All right. And one more piece of social media that we need to talk about. It's called Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and Plain Tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @HI11E1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel @HI11E1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. And let's see, what else? I guess that's about it. Looking forward to talking to you all again next week for our next episode, 297. We're getting close to 300. And in fact, after today's show, we're going to talk about the details regarding the celebration at Dana's house for episode 300, which is going to be on the 25th of November, 25th of this month, the Saturday of the Thanksgiving weekend. And hopefully we'll have all that information for you next time on the Airline Pilot Guy Show. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care. God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
We'll see you
Bye,
next
everybody.
time. Bye-bye.
Bam.
Bam.
That's what she said.
Well done, Jeff. You hung on in there, mate. Just.
Oh,
Barely.
man.
Touch and go there for a minute. Touch and go. Right.
That was a tough one for you.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard.
That's what she said.
I recorded for 3 hours and 1 minute. So
did I. Yep.
Yep. Your timing's pretty good.
I'm 221.
Yeah, we had some stumbles and pauses in there as well. So it'll be something less than that. It'll probably work out to be about 245 altogether.
Yeah, that'll be perfect.
Yeah. All right, and I was like, "Oh wait, we haven't done Plain Tales yet." You're probably wondering, when is he going to play that darn thing?
No, I was enjoying myself. This is going great.
Again, awesome interview with Lange, Demery, and it was a interesting story. And absolutely. Thanks very much.
He's very keen to get any feedback because I think he wants to know how that story came across. So if anyone gets any, please, could you pass it on to me and I'll pass it on to Nigel.
Will do.
All right. And Lane's asking, are you going to do 2 a week to get to 300, Jeff?
No.
Why would we do
this? This is 296, right? Did we miscalculate this?
Well, we're off by 1.
We're off by 1, are we?
Okay.
Yep.
So let's
not necessarily, because if we do one next week, the one the week after that, the one the week after that, and then 300 on Saturday. Right?
So this was 97, right?
This was 96.
96.
97, 98.
Okay, so 97, 98, 99. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll do a feedback extra kind of show at the beginning of the Thanksgiving week.
Sure.
1, 2.
So that would make it, and that way maybe we could catch up on some of the feedback and then because we're not going to get much feedback for the 300 show. By the way, if you're listening to us live right now or watching the video, if you have some favorite things that we did since the 200th. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be since the 200th, but anything that you think would be fun to replay on the show, like what do we call that, Steph? Did
we call it something?
Yeah, I think it's people refer to it as
memories, or I don't know.
Memories.
No, the thing that you did. You were reading the technical paper. I can't remember the.
What are you talking
swivelly, when you had some beer, and come on, there. Thank you, Lane. Shimmy shake, like the shimmy shake. If you have some kind of a memory that you thought it was really funny or would be fun to play on the show. See, Lane knew it. Wow. Lane understands me. Thank you, Lane.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to think of, if you were trying to think of a different word for like favorite clips or feedback or memories. I was like, is there a specific word that I'm
No, I was trying to remember.
That's what I was trying to think of. I'm sorry.
And I'm thinking,
I've never seen Steph do a shimmy shake. Can you show us?
Yes, I'd like to see this.
It's not a.
Get on your feet. Come on.
It's not a dance.
You have to stay tuned for 300. Yeah, it's not so much a dance move as
Yeah, but it is entertaining.
It is bloopers. That's actually a great word for it. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah,
my mind boggles.
Oh, come on. You all remember the shimmy shake. We named the episode after it.
I know.
Okay. Well,
no, I definitely remember it.
I don't remember it. I wasn't around for that.
Yeah, well,
maybe
not.
Well, you'll find out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Classic
stuff
moments.
Like that, if you have some suggestions. And as I mentioned, we're gonna shut this thing off so that the crew can quickly, because I know that stuff you got to run. Talk about some details about the actual event, the 300 event on Saturday the 25th.
Sounds good.
All right. Let me see if I can find the window to. Take care, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us.
Bye. Good seeing everybody again. It's been a while.